the morning sunrise. In Lion's Gate 'neath the tall fir trees, on your face feel the ocean breeze. Feel the magic that's in the air, in Lion's Gate the fair.
And recording has now started. Dun, dun, dun.
Okay.
Normally that would be my cue, but we'll let Kevin go with it today.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's usually His Excellency's, but because we figured that they've got to carry enough of the load today by being one of the panelists, that I would introduce us. So we're gonna do something a little bit different this evening, because this is a baronial retrospective in history, and we are unfortunately not able to have every Baron and Baroness of Lionsgate join us. We're actually going to start with a quick 5-minute video presentation put together by Mistress Isabella. So I would ask that you watch and enjoy this as my fellow co-host Gerhard shares his screen.
Everybody see the screen? One nod, two nods. Good, thank you. A thumbs up, that's all I need.
Can't see the screen, Gerhard.
Nope. Okay.
Yeah, we don't have a screen yet.
I don't have a screen.
You're sharing your sound, but not your screen, bud.
Oh, hot.
Are we allowed to have a shot if we have technical difficulties?
We're
Yeah.
strongly
Yes.
encouraged to do so.
I'm taking one anyway. But,
Yeah.
Now do you see the screen?
Come over there and stop you, right?
Nope.
No, we still can't see the screen.
You.
Oh, there's nice feedback there.
There we go.
There we
That's
go.
better.
Oh, yay, there we go.
Yay!
Okay, please do mute everyone.
Now there's no sound.
I am going to murder.
Do over.
Aha.
figured it out. Maybe.
It is. I had it. I'm going to stop the share for just a moment, please, because we'd actually tested this before the meeting started and had it working. And it decided it doesn't want to do it again. That is what I want. Oh, hang on. Is that better?
No
We
sound.
can,
No
we
sound.
can't hear it.
It's got a beautiful soundtrack. You'll have to trust me. I had it actually working.
I'm sure you can figure it out.
I'm going to fight with it for a minute. No, you know what? We will live without the beautiful soundtrack. I'm sorry.
We will upload the video with the episode to YouTube.
Yes.
Man, some of these are being time travel photos.
Okay, thank you for joining us for that. And again, my apologies and Juria's apologies and the Barony's apologies, because we had it working, and then it didn't.
And now people will have an extra reason to go to YouTube and watch it.
Right.
There
Go
you
to the YouTubes. We've got a baronial YouTubes. We've got a baronial Zooms. We're living in the future. It's quite a thing. All right, so link. Yes, excellent point, Lady Jacqueline. We will put a link in the chat as well as in the discussion thread for the Facebook event later. So with no further ado, I'm going to start us off. I'm going to introduce the general sort of format for the evening, and then I'm going to step back and let their excellencies sort of address some of these topics and questions going forward. So first off, hello, panelists and guests to our Lion's Den this evening. This is episode 19, which I've subtitled 13 Years of Bees and Bees. Firstly, I'm very, very glad that I have actually had the opportunity to serve all 8 of you in sort of different capacities, pretty much from the beginning of my SCA career. But as much as I know many of our guests will know you, some of them may not, and for posterity and for the entire point of this exercise, I'd like you guys to sort of introduce yourselves. So what we're going to begin by going around the table chronologically and having you briefly introduce yourselves. After that, I have a series of topics that I'm going to introduce, or I've asked you to introduce. If you have your document available, that's fine. If not, I can always prompt when we get to the next topic. Because of several different arcane reasons known mostly to myself, I'm going to ask those questions in reverse chronological order, starting with their current excellencies Lionsgate. So after each pair has had a chance to respond initially, we're opening it up, of course, to everyone else to fill in, add their own thoughts, their own comments to supplement and complement each other's answers. So with the format overview finished, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, introductions chronologically. So Griffin and Caitrin, James, Margaret, William, Caitrina, and Aindriasa, can you please tell us your full name and persona, when you sat as Baron and Baroness, which is a little repetitive because we just had that incredible video, and then a brief 20 words or less statement about your baronial term. This can be something like, I loved this particular event, or I was very touched when this happened, or the courtiers were always my favorite. Anything, really. So, Griffin and Caitrin, please take it away.
All right, well, I am Baron Sir Griffin at Bedwyr. My persona is 12th century, actually 13th century now that time has passed over, like I'm in my 50s now. So we're into the 13th century as far as my persona is concerned. 13th century Welsh.
I am Mistress Caitrin Cingeadh. My persona started out early Irish, but Griffin ended up creating an extensive back history, which sucked me into his world. So I was shot up chronologically. So yeah, I just refer to him. We were Baron and Baroness between January 2008 and November 2010.
Which makes it sound like we only had 2 years, but actually it was almost 3 years.
Almost
We
3
were
years.
short a few because of logistics and everything. We had to step down in November rather than January. So we didn't quite have 3 years, but it was close.
So it was AS 42 to 45. And the courtiers were always my favorite.
Your Excellency. Okay, James and Margaret, please.
I'm Margaret Hamilton of Stirlingshire, and I'm 14th century Scottish living in Newbury.
So I'm James Wolfden. I'm 14th century English, an archer who served in Crecy and Calais, as obviously my interest in archery is there. And obviously I, stole a woman from Scotland on one of the expeditions up that way, I guess. We served November 6, 2010 to November 29, 2013, stepping up at a Baroness tourney and stepping down at a Baroness inspirational tourney as well. And as for a favorite, it's hard to say to sum it up. I would just use one word that we were after, and we'll talk about it more later on, community. That was the key thing for us.
Excellent. Thank you, Your Excellencies. Okay, William and Caitrina.
Baron William MacFarquhar Vic Gille Aindrias, originally 12th century Scottish, that migrated by about 200 years for various reasons, mostly due to costuming, because I liked it better. Caitrina?
Caitrina Inghean Aindriasa, 12th century Scottish to begin with, but the Norse is taken over. I really like the bling. I joined the SCA in 2003 because I was dating someone who was in the SCA.
That's familiar.
We stepped up after James and Margaret in November of 2013 and stepped down 5 years later. Kendrick, when did you step up?
2019.
November
November of 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say the thing I liked the best about the barony, oddly enough, wasn't mine, but it was the sergeantry. I think we had an awful lot of fun with them, and it was a whole lot of enjoyment.
We'll fix that.
And eventually, the courtiers from that. As a separate group, I meant though.
Yeah, which was definitely a part of your legacy. But that also gives us a fantastic segue into Their Excellency's Lionsgate. Kendrick and Ariana, please.
So November 2018.
18. Oh, that's what I meant. Sorry.
We're wrong.
Sorry to mess. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So I'm Ariana Fremont. I don't have a persona. I like to think I do, but I don't.
You're SCA.
I'm SCA, yeah. Basically, Kenrick is Norman, and I dress Norman a lot of the time because of that. But I tend to wear a lot of different time periods because I like the clothes from a lot of different time periods, and I don't like to be hot. So depending on the season, I am a totally different time period. But yeah, so I don't have one. I apologize, but I kind of like to float.
And I am Kenrick Bearson, Baron of Lionsgate. We are the current Baron and Baroness, in case anybody didn't know that. I am currently 12th century Norman. I was just thinking of what my knight said, and that means in July I'll be 13th century Norman.
Time just passed.
And yes, we are the current ones, and we are having a blast.
I think the thing I enjoy most about being Baron Baroness is reaching out to the populace, not only just ours, but across the kingdom, connecting them with Lionsgate and just making them feel welcome and helping them find a place.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so with our introductions over, we're going to start to our first topic, which is origin stories. So to give you a bit of a rundown of what this is, again, we're going to be going in reverse chronological order. So hopefully, Kendrick and Ariana, you guys are ready. But the questions or the topic sort of starters. This is not a limiting factor in any way, but just to get conversation going. How did you find the SCA? When did you start playing? And what was your first experience with SCA royalty and or SCA celebrity? But because this is a baronial panel, I figured, good question.
Thank you. So it starts with me? With us? Okay, so I discovered the SCA, I think about 1987. I was working as a dispatcher for the RCMP, and my life was very grounded in reality. And my mom happened to see a demo at Lonsdale Quay in North Vancouver. And she told me about this amazing group of people that were wearing funny clothes and hitting each other with sticks. And I was very intrigued. So because we didn't really have the computers and the Google back in those days, I did this weird thing. I went to the library and I asked a librarian if she knew about a local group that was medieval. And she did. And she gave me the name and phone number of the Baron and Baroness of Lionsgate, who were Gerhard and Amanda. So I phoned them and they invited me for tea. And my very first event was a masked ball, which I wore loner garb. I met a ton of people and have never, ever, ever, ever left. So I have been a diehard since then and have loved every minute of it.
And myself, I joined in 1990. I was dating Alexandra the Fair. She and a few other of my high school friends, including Herbaceous, who I believe is on right now watching this. So he's indirectly the fault that I'm in. I was at university and she found the SCA here. I came back and we went to Bitter Waters. If anybody remembers Bitter Waters, a lot of people would, but a lot of people wouldn't. It's now Sea Lion War, for those who don't know. And the rest was history. As for our first experience with SCA royalty,
Yeah, it was both the same pretty much.
for us, we were fringe prior to Kieran and Cassinia's reign, when they pulled us kicking and screaming
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
into the mainstream, so to speak, by asking Ariana to be their head of retinue.
Yeah, the very first reign. And I'd never done anything like that before. I'm not sure to this day why she asked us, but she did. And I mean, we'd had lots of contact with tons of people and we'd been involved. We'd done a lot of service, we'd done a lot of things. But as far as being involved with royalty and being involved with that aspect of the SCA, it was Kieran and Cassinia for sure.
There you go, Kevin.
Yeah, no, excellent. Thank you. Now we open it up to everybody else. It's a free-for-all.
Well, I wanted to throw in my origin story because it is kind of a roundabout and interesting way of discovering the SCA. I too joined in 1987, but I had heard about the SCA long before that. When I was in England, when I was 16, there was a fellow who portrayed a knight at Warwick Castle. And he had the full armor on. He was riding around on a horse and everything. And I spent the whole day pretty much just hanging around, watching him, talking to him and all that kind of stuff. And he said, oh, I was from Canada. He says, oh, are you a member of the NSCA? And I said, I don't know what that is. And he said, well, that's a medieval group in Canada. Okay, fine. Well, that's interesting. And then I didn't know any much more about that until we came back to Canada, moved down to the coast, and then my mother saw that there was a demo at Brentwood Mall, and so I went there to watch this demo, and I saw fighters like Aaron of the Black Mountains, Geoffrey de Renee. There was I know that Gerhard was there. There was Kushag probably remembers that one. I think she was there as well. That was probably in 1984, 83, 84. And then in my last year of high school, when my friend said, hey, let's go there. I've heard there's a fight practice in Surrey. So we went there. And this is again my first contact with royalty. There was a guy there that taught me how to throw a snap. And that was Duke Eric, and he actually was king at the time. And I didn't realize that until we went to my first event, and that was a crown tournament. And he was the king at the time.
So his high school friend was Rossi.
Yes.
Yes. As for origins, mine goes back to about that same time. The first time I ran into the SCA, I was watching, and I believe it was Scalanis and Curtis at a fighting practice sometime in the early 80s. I'm not really sure about that. And I talked to them briefly and kind of put it out of my mind. And this probably shouldn't come as much of a surprise to anybody, but I was doing some research on medieval board games. And I remembered this group of people that probably played medieval games. So I started looking at, again, I went down to the library, and I was probably 16 when I first event, which would have been the Eisenmark Civil War. The life of me, I couldn't tell you when that was. Again, early 80s.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, and of course, I didn't drive, and there was no way my parents had the time to drive me to these things, so I disappeared. It wasn't until I was married, and I thought, what about this group I used to hear about? So it was the summer of '86 that I went to my first event and have been here since.
I guess my origin story, you're in it. We first got together and he was telling me about this society he belonged to. And he said, you need to come and find an interest. There's something in the SCA for everyone. What are you into? And I said, I've always been into like coats of arms and stuff. And he just clapped his hands together and sat me at a consulting table. And,
And that was it.
and when I corrected him once on a answer he gave to someone, he said, you're ready.
Yeah.
And he's been saying that.
Took
ever
about a week, I think.
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
I,
But my
I
interaction.
guess my origin. No, go ahead. I don't want to talk over you.
No, I was just going to say the only interaction, my first interaction with royalty was when I was Lion's Blood Herald and I had to tell a king no, that he couldn't have the spelling of the name he wanted. And he said, but I'm king. I went, doesn't matter. I felt so bad. But he understood.
I'm going to say I have probably, I guess, a little bit of an earlier introduction. I came in through the science fiction community. So my first introduction to the SCA would have been 1977. WesterCon 30. They did a demo. Some of you, I was born, I can tell you that much. I remember depriving myself of sleep because we stayed up the entire convention, a couple of us, because we didn't have any rooms to rent. So we just went from party to party. And so very sleep deprived. I remember climbing up, it was at Totem Park, and I remember climbing up on the covers, the walkway covers, to watch the fighting go on there. And it was great. It was fantastic. There was a lot of crossover between the science fiction community and the SCA at that time. I will say it. We actually considered the SCA to be fringe fandom. Comic books were fringe fandom. Science fiction movies were fringe fandom. Real fandom, you read books. We were obviously elitist on there. But that was my first introduction. Then 2 years later, 79, I finally got up to the point of going to an event where at one point, my garb was just sort of very bad. My sister made a peasant shirt, a hippie peasant shirt, which was kind of popular at the time, and I wore that. I had a red scarf that I wrapped around my waist as a belt sort of thing. It was a Monboggan Moon Festival. So I, as any young bachelor does, you bring ham because it's cheap and you don't have to cook.
Yep.
So I brought the ham there. At one point, I started getting chased because some people wanted to capture me and present me and tie me up and present me to Baroness Amanda. And I'm a very fast runner, so they couldn't quite catch me. So they decided to go after some 8-year-old, and I felt guilty, so I surrendered to them. And I was, my hands were bound, and I was presented as a gift to Baroness Amanda. That was my first event. I quite enjoyed it, but I really was more into the science fiction community at that time. I'm not sure why I actually didn't go back again until 1999, when I was doing a camp for the Boy Scouts, for the Cub Scouts, and we were doing a medieval theme. We used to always refer to the SCA as in the science fiction community, as our friends from the Hill, referring to the number of them that came from SFU. So I just sort of thought, well, if we're going to do a medieval theme event, let's see if I still have any friends from the Hill. And I got in contact with the SCA and ended up joining back into it again.
Awesome.
Actually have a
please come in.
The science fiction convention thing. Before I officially joined, I was at a BCon, and Ross Newcomb, who I don't know how many of you still know Ross Newcomb, but he was a famous sword seller in the SCA for many, many years. But he always had a booth at BCon, and he had all the swords out there. So of course it's a sword, so I'm attracted to it. And he had chainmail, and he had helmets, and there was a helmet there, a costume helmet made by Sir Geoffrey. And he said, well, I wanted to buy it. He said, well, you can't buy this one. It's sold already. But, if you want to make a commission, well, I'll contact Sir Geoffrey and he'll make one. And then by the time he got around to contact me saying, hey, I'm going to make this helm for you, I joined the SCA. He said, oh, okay, well, we can change it to a full combat helm. And that was my first helmet.
Nice. Cool.
Oddly enough, something James said reminded me about your awful garb. My first event, the Eisenmark Civil War. My grandma was a costumer, but my dad, when he was a kid, they had a rock band called the Wizards. So the first thing I wore to an event was a long blue tunic with white stars on it.
Oh boy.
Which I now realize could be Tiri heraldic.
There you go.
You were ahead of your time.
Yeah.
I'm just picturing your dad in a rock band with your ropes on now. It's just, okay.
Yep. They had the hats and everything. Yeah.
Doing their barbershop quartet.
Yep.
This predated that, but yeah.
I should have brought old
Turns
photos.
out William's family does barbershop quartet.
Was there a TRE at that time, Your Excellency?
Sorry?
Was there a TRE at that time?
No, gosh no.
We're way ahead of the curve.
I think. Let me think about that.
A man before.
When did An Tir become kingdom? I think we were. Yeah.
1982.
82.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it was just brand new then too. Yeah.
That long ago?
Yeah. Where'd the time go?
Ah.
That's why we're all old. Who haven't told their origin story yet?
I guess I haven't. I basically started going to the SCA when James started going to the archery practice behind Telus, run by John McAndrew. And so started then.
Next part, Kim.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's my 10 seconds. I'm gonna move a class along. All right, so topic number 3, becoming the B&B. So we're gonna keep rolling through our order. This is Uilliam and Caitrina. A couple of different conversation starters that I had for this. When did you decide to run for Baron and Baroness? What were your goals in running? And what influence did the other panelists have on your process of becoming? And again, if you can start, and then we'll share it off to the rest of the panel.
I'll start.
Decide to become. Yeah, we were thinking about this one all day actually. Why did we decide to do it? It was honestly, we almost ran the time before that, when James and Margaret stood up, and I think we both felt we had other jobs we needed to get done. We had taken on other things.
We had multiple offices in various levels.
And we felt that work was more important, or maybe not more important, but
That's where we were needed more.
that was where we thought we were needed. And when James and Margaret announced that they were stepping down, we thought now's a decent time for us personally to take it on. And we thought we could probably do a decent job. I mean,
Yeah, there were some changes in the barony as an administrator.
Yeah.
My biggest goal was to have a written guide for the sergeantry, as well as just getting a lot of the history down, because I like to organize things.
and I think the fact that we had both spent a lot of time as seneschals in both the barony and the principality, it added a different perspective on the roles, I guess. We and serving as the baronial heralds as well. We spent so much time working with and being around the Baron and Baronesses that it felt like a comfortable transition to take on that role. Okay, maybe comfort's not the correct term.
Yeah. Baroness Margaret helped me with that. She taught me, you have to let other people do things for you. You're used to doing it all. You need to let them help you. And that was
Still hasn't happened.
I got a little better.
And as for the influence of the other panels, I think complete influence on us.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we would not have even considered the job having not seen and worked with at least the four of you, but Griffin and Caitrin, and Devin and Aurora, and even Gerhard and Amanda to some extent. The honor that had been shown to the position ahead of time was what I'm trying to say, difficult to try to live up to moving into it. But having watched the job you guys had done, we felt honored to try to take it on and do it ourselves. You guys, you four were a big influence on me taking this job. Go.
That was it.
And now it's kind of an open thing.
I'll take it. So, soon as Gerhard and Amanda said that they were stepping down, I was interested. But at the time, our children were very little.
We were actually approached by several people saying, you know, like, we think that you would be a good choice. There was a lot at the time. There was a lot of like looking around, saying, well, who's going to take over? You know, who's the likely candidate? And mostly it was looking at who were stable couples, and we were a stable couple, and we were very involved. So there were people coming to us and saying, hey, you know, is this something you'd be interested in? And yes, we were. But again,
it was scary to be the first to follow Gerhard and Amanda. So that was a bit of a thing. But mostly,
I mean, after that,
you know, our children were very young, 6, 7 years old. We
right.
didn't know at that time, because we didn't know at the time how much time it would take away from parenting while you're at an event. And so we figured our family was pretty young. So the next time was probably better. So when we did step up, our kids were 11 and 12, 13 in there. So definitely more self-sufficient.
Yeah, and we kind of looked at where we were, where the barony was, and we thought, yeah, okay, it's our time to step into this position. So, what were some of the other? What were our goals? Well, I don't know whether we had any major goals. I mean, the main thing was to serve the barony and to be what the barony needed at the time. And that was our main focus, was just to be the stewards of the barony that it needed. And even though, you know, it's like looking at this panel here, and even though none of you had served at that point in time, Baron and Baroness, because we were the only, you know,
we were ahead of all of you guys.
Ahead of all you guys. Yep. The only ones we had to, you know, to look back and have like give us feedback about what it was like to be Baron and Baroness was
Devin and Aurora.
And Amanda. But Devin and Aurora, they weren't, well, Aurora at the time we decided to step up. Aurora wasn't in the picture a lot, and Devin was pulling away quite a bit at that point in time. So we didn't get a lot from them. Amanda was helpful, but I mean, even though like Mark or William and Kinrick, even though you have not at that point served in this position, like Kinrick was my squire, so we discussed this quite a bit, you know, as to how it would, you know, whether we should go ahead with this and how it would affect me as a knight, and then my relationship with squires. And William was essential at the time, so we had a lot of discussions with him about what it would take, what would be needed, and all that kind of stuff. And
you know what it needs to be a successful Baron and Baroness? An awesome seneschal.
True that. We agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're gonna get.
And we were very lucky with having William as our seneschal when we stepped up, because he helped us He
You did
helped
all
us
the
a
work.
lot.
You did a
That
lot.
was it was tough too because when Devin announced he needed to find a new seneschal because the current seneschal had to leave, and everybody started looking around, going, "Who would want to be seneschal? Couldn't imagine anything." And it was actually John McAndrew's fault, and he kind of turned to me and said, "You could do that." So I said, "Okay," and I went to Devin and talked to him about it. And about 2 weeks later, he came up and said, "Congratulations, you're the new seneschal, and your first job is to find a new baron and baroness." And it was into the wind from then on. That was my first job.
Unfortunately, for Devin, I think in a lot of times he was very poorly served by his seneschals. I don't want to like slag on who did the job, but there was some times where, and particularly he felt poorly served. So I think we lucked out that greatly because Uilliam was seneschal when we stepped up.
And it was fun and honor to serve you.
James, did you want to say anything?
Sure, I can step in here and talk about it. We kind of have the same similar situation as you guys did. Devin was actually pushing us to come in and step in when you guys stepped up to it. I really felt it was too early for us. He might have had Margaret talked into it a little bit, but I was still going like, it's not the right time for us. It's not the right time. But the thing about it is when someone's pushing like that, the next time it comes around, it's a little bit easier. You've actually had now 3 years to think about it.
Definitely.
And so we were able, I mean, we didn't put our names, I think we were the last couple to put our names in on it there. And we put the names in and we're obviously victorious on it there. It was interesting because, you know, we were running against Kenrick and Ariana. And one of the things we were talking about how we would help different people. If, you know, when we're talking to the royals, it seems like, you know, the message that we try to emphasize is that, yeah, like, you know, we've got some great people running against us. And you know, we specifically mentioned Kenrick and Ariana and said, hey, you know, at this point, I'm thinking we're probably, maybe we got it. There were times when I think, yeah, I might be doing okay. And other times like, oh no, it's going to be Kenrick and Ariana all the way there. But one of the things that I looked at there, and it was they were, you know, all the people, but specifically Kenrick and Ariana were something that we made emphasis to the royals that we would be supporting if we were not victorious on it. And, you know, I know that they sort of said the same thing on it there in regards to us on it. So it was quite there. And then, of course, we had to help because Griffin and Caitrin were there to help us in on things. You know, the thing that Caitrina brought up that Margaret mentioned, I also have to have a thing on that too. Yes, you've got to let other people help. But there's one thing that you also always remember with being Baron and Baroness. You will get lots of people that will help you load your vehicle with all the stuff at the event.
Yep.
But when you get home, you're unloading it yourself.
It's wet.
But it's wet, yeah. Other things on there. As far as things, I guess the only thing that I can think about, what was our main goal? We'll probably go into it maybe a little bit more there, but I would say, again, it's that community, that sense of community that we want to build. Going into the SCA and being part of the archery community, there were people that would talk about the rapier ghetto, the archery slums, and the things we wanted to sort of try to emphasize was we're all members of the barony. We're all citizens of the barony. We might have focuses that are different in some cases, but there's a lot of heavy fighters that are also archers, that are also do rapier, that also do ANS. Yeah. We're a community, and that's the thing we try to emphasize the most on it there.
And we're better off by joining together and exploring everybody else's interests.
This one? You can start. Yeah, I mean, of course, I for sure started thinking about this when my knight was thinking of running. And like he said, we had quite a few talks but in the very beginning, when they were talking about Devon and Aurora stepping down, and people were talking about who's going to step up, and I directly asked him. I said, "Are you going to run?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Then I won't."
Yeah,
Because he was my knight. I wasn't going to run against my knight.
And he would have kicked our butts, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, figuratively and literally.
Yeah,
too.
figuratively and literally.
And then when James and Margaret ran,
well, we were running.
We were already in the race.
And I kept telling Margaret, "You guys should run. You guys should run. You guys would be really good at this. You guys should run."
And Margaret asked
if it was okay, because they decided they were going to run.
Because they didn't want hard feelings between us if they ran against us, and which they ended up.
And I would just like to point out, they kicked our butts. I was like,
which in our personal life turned out to be a good thing. In hindsight,
you know, you talk about kids and talk about family. It definitely was not the right time. And by the time the decision was made, and Her Majesty Miranda called me, and she was so sweet and she was so conciliatory, and she was, you know, "I hope this doesn't, you know, make you leave the SCA." And she was just gutted.
And I'm watching her on the phone, and she's
I'm
dancing.
like doing it because it wasn't the right time, right? So I was like, "Oh no, don't worry, we're fine. Yes, we'll try again, I promise." So she was very kind, and the right decision was made, and James and Margaret were amazing.
And there is always that, "Yay, we won!" Oh, we won.
Yeah,
We
exactly,
won.
right? So we didn't try the next time.
Because we were
again,
still
wasn't the right
life
time.
was
Life
still
was- yeah.
difficult for us.
And then the time was right.
Yeah.
And we thought, this is our moment. This is our time. So we were all in. We were very excited, and
then COVID happened.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we had Jake and Raheel, I think, were the only people we had to run against us.
Yep.
No. Oh no.
Try again.
No.
We had two other couples.
Oh yeah,
One of
we
those-
did. We
one of
had
those-
Bryony and we had Brianna. So yes, and the
Jure.
guys.
It's Jure.
So-
Yeah. That guy.
Those guys, yeah.
Guys, it was a really amazing group. And when we thought about how many years Larrick had, how many years Bryony had, how many years Jure, how many years, it was truly the most epic of experienced people, and that we were able to win, be chosen was a tremendous honor against these people.
I remember that panel when we were all sitting there, and Larrick figured out who had been in for 27 years or something like that point, and he's like, "I've been in the shortest time."
Amount of time. It was so amazing that so many people were there to represent the barony and to try to lead the barony, and it was really it was real humbling.
Yeah,
it really
Barony's very blessed for having such depth.
Oh, it's like when we were stepping up, the couples that were running against us, there was what was
Bernadette and Kenzie.
Bernadette and Kenzie both had a great deal of experience. There was Rowena and Jeffrey. You know, have been in forever. And then Stefano and Azure, and I mean Stefano's had
long time players,
vast experience, been in for years and years and years. And then there was Jake and Raheel.
That time they were fairly new.
They were pretty new at that. They were, but actually, we as far as time in goes, we had more than Jason Raheel, but based on compared to the other couples there, we were kind of relatively new in SC. Though we did have many years, because I guess I started
10 years.
Yes.
10 years.
Yeah. More than 10 years.
More than 10 years. What was it? 2008, 98,
yeah.
just over 10 years.
Yeah.
And they never gave up trying either.
I was in, yeah. I started in 98.
All right, Kevin. I think
I was
that's
gonna
it.
say, there's my wait time.
Yeah,
So
20 years. Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in here because I have a personal anecdote to add to that, because I also got that really sad, really conciliatory phone call from Her Majesty Miranda. Much like some of the unsuccessful people who have run for Baron and Baroness, I had only been playing about 2 years, and I had all kinds of fabulous ideas about what I could do, and I'm very, very glad they did not select myself or Kira. That would have been a mess. Not because of her, not because of any of that, just because it would not have been good. So moving right along, we are at topic 4, actually being the Baron and Baron. Yeah, Kira's on top of that, man.
But now that you've been
Sure, that would have been a mess. Okay, so being the Baron Baroness, we're going to lead with James and Margaret on this one. A couple of topic discussions. What was the brightest highlight of your time wearing the coronet, or what did you feel most pride in having accomplished? What was one of your biggest projects or tasks or intentions while you were sitting? What were some of your biggest challenges during your term? And what was your experience interacting with other royals, so other barons and baronesses, princes and princesses, kings and queens? This one's got a little bit more meat to it, so we'll probably spend a little bit more time, but please take it away.
So the first thing I always bring up here is I do consider pride to be one of the 7 deadly sins. So I have to say I always want to be careful about being proud of anything. The hubris can cause an issue on there. When I look at it, Griffin and Caitrin made a mention there of kind of just doing what needed to be done at the time, being the Baron and Baroness that was needed at the time there. So I don't look that we did a lot of major things, but we did kind of look at ourselves as we need to kind of get this into idea being kind of a transition phase. Gerhard and Amanda had been the voice of the barony for so long, and they were kind of the barony. But as we move forward, it comes very hard to keep walking in their footsteps, and we have to kind of move beyond it. So I kind of looked at what was part of our job was to help transition, to make it easier for changes down the road. Some of the changes what we did, one very subtle change that we did was to take the term Baronesses champions and change it to Baronesses inspiration. And it really means the same. It's people that are inspired by the Baroness, but it did kind of allow, during our reign, our defenders could call themselves either defenders or champions. And the other thing that I liked that I did that tied into that was with Baroness's tourney, which is really kind of one of our major events in there, and I would say right now is our major event, was renaming it to tie in with this to the Baroness Inspiration Tourney. And one of the things that I implemented there, it doesn't always get done from there on, but I do want to bring it up because I want to encourage every Baron and Baroness going along to sort of deal with it, because it deals with our history and new traditions. And that's the Sergeant's Toast to all the Baronesses. So what we sort of had there is we had a different member of the Sergeant. When we did our toast, rather than do all the standard toast, we had a different member of the Sergeantry raise a glass essentially to each one of the Baronesses. Typically, we picked the sergeant that had been made a sergeant during the reign of that Baroness. And so that was kind of one of the main kind of things that I look and seeing that we were doing on there. Now, another thing that I'll sort of bring up when we're looking at what we're kind of excited about and different things like that. Part of it was, bring up the sergeantry there. One of the key things that I'll always remember from one of the events, obviously one of the issues that we had to deal with was the fact that we were no longer holding Clinton War. We had, the economy had a downturn when we were in there, so we were losing people. So we wanted to add different things. We wanted to revitalize the sergeantry as much as we could. And at a tournament of armies, Margaret fielded a team, an army that was based off of the sergeantry, so we wanted to have that there. And when she did the Baroness's walk, I remember watching at one point, they had done the walk, and she was now having her inspirational speech to the sergeantry, and the emotion was really there on her face as she was talking about it in her voice, and I think there were some tears as she was talking. So it was very much it really brought it home what we did and what we were, what the barony was about. And I think sergeantry is very, very important that way, because they kind of represent us. They're a challenge to represent what is the best in our barony. So that's one of the things, set the groundwork for change, transition. A lot of new people came in. We were losing some of the old, but we tried to do whatever we could to bring people back, try to bring in old traditions if we could, even though we were moving forward with some new ones. Just the idea of changing the A&S competition to Canterbury Fair, which is an old event. We weren't doing the old event, but we were pulling the name. We were stealing the name just to sort of get it on there. We did look what every Baron and Baroness tries to look at, is try to stabilize the calendar, align the calendar. We were getting into the event creep. And with that, and when we talk about doing different things, I remember at one of the noble estate meetings, and I had to use the term, and I was finding another baron down in the south was using the same term. Lionsgate is always going to be the big bad barony. So all of the other shires, if we hold an event, oh, well, we're infringing on the other shires in Tir. If we don't show up at their events, it's Lionsgate's fault and stuff like that. We're always going to, because we're the biggest barony. And it was nice to talk with the other barons and find out any of the other large baronies in Washington State. They had the same thing. They were the big bad barony in their area. And what did they do about it? So we try to do it. I remember one time I gave up a date to Lionsdale. They actually stole the date. They stole the date. I won't. They stole the date. But I'll say but I was going to give it up to them anyway, because they didn't want the weekend that they would have had because it rained. It rained, so that's fine. I'll take the weekend that it rains, which is a bad thing to do when you're known as the Sunshine Baron. Well, bad for Lionsdale. We had the good weather, and it rained on their weekend when it never rains. So the Sunshine Baron held his luck, and we did have the sunshine on that weekend. We had a lot of fun playing with the other, like with the Baron and Baroness of Seagirt over Sea Lion War. Those are always a fun time, a fun thing to set up. Margaret can talk a little bit more on that as well, if you want to do that now.
Oh, well, I mean, that was just one of my funnest things, getting to know Mog and playing off each other, so that, oh, look at those men, and all the barons, they just fight. But it was just impromptu and just a lot of fun. And it just brought a lot of joy to that particular event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only other one that I was going to thought about bringing up, something I thought in there. Here's where I got to some brownie points for the barony. September crown, noble estate, scheduled for a certain time, but things are running a bit late, and the king and queen need to go in for the invocation of the list for the king to protect her. Being an archer, I usually try to go out and, sort of do my support for anybody from Lionsgate that's competing. And so I'm there, but the king and queen are there, so I'm not worried. I'm not missing noble estate. Matter of fact, I walk back with their majesties back to court, so we can get started on the noble estate meeting. And the other baron and baronesses already started noble estate without their majesties. I don't think their majesty was very happy. So we made the brownie points, because I didn't start early. I was with them.
Yes.
That always helps. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's pretty much. I mean, the only other thing that was a challenge was the real history changing. Oh, can you hear me still? Because oh, okay. Sorry, I couldn't hear me all of a sudden. I didn't have any reverb. The passing of Amanda, because Amanda had her illness, and she passed during the time that we were Baron and Baroness, and so it was just helping the barony through that was very important, I found. That's everything I have.
Okay,
Well, I
so
would
we'll open up
want
for-
to say that I think that the two best things that we had when we were Baron Baroness to start off was following the four of you, because we got to, the four of you added a stability to the barony that had been missing in years prior. There wasn't that, stability is the only word I've got. And to be able to follow what you four had done meant we got to try to make some changes.
Yeah.
That probably would not have been comfortable changes 4 years, 8 years earlier. And I think the best thing we had was Colin and Letitia and Cingeadh, because that relationship was just phenomenal. The four of us played off each other constantly, and usually so much laughter going beforehand, planning it all out, but not telling the other person exactly what we were going to be doing. Letitia didn't honestly know that the head was going to fall out of the bucket at that particular daffodil tournament, and her reaction was perfect. But that was, I think, one of the highlights of our time was the relationship with Cingeadh. And it was fitting that we all stepped down at the same time. I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, there's so many highlights, but the memory that keeps popping up is His Majesty Christian convincing me to let him wear my garb and pretend to be me to start a war with Cingeadh. It was,
yeah,
that was inspired, and everyone says, how did you get him to do? No, that was his idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I know Bryn Mawr is on here because it was Bryn Mawr. No, it was Lyric, wasn't it? It was Lyric was going to do it
Lyric,
first.
because unfortunately, Christian was delayed getting to the event, so I had Lyric in my garb, and he was all nervous, like, what? I said, you gotta do it. But I remember Her Majesty, she's looking at Christian like, how are you gonna get this to, he's a little tall. So I said, no, bend your knees, and I gave him my cane, and she went, oh my God. Because he came in with a full beard.
Yeah.
And shaved it just for court.
And I think probably my favorite thing that we got to work on was the courtiers, making them into their own order, separate from the sergeantry, and giving them, I guess, a better direction than we had thought they had before. In talking with all of them at the time too, it felt like this needed to happen, and I think it was a whole lot of fun to work with and get that done.
With me, it was the sergeantry, but that's all them. They did it all. They did the work. I just got to sit back and watch.
You poked them to do it.
Yes, but they took it and
Yeah.
ran with it. They did an
Definitely.
awesome job.
Yeah.
Know that Griffin Caitrin had a interesting time.
Well, I was just thinking that you know, it's like we're talking about the brightest highlights and the biggest projects and the biggest challenges. They're in our case, they're very interconnected. The biggest challenge that we had during our reign had to be Clinton.
Yep.
And so we had that was very, very difficult. I mean, Uilliam can tell you he was involved in that quite a
Some
bit.
difficult
as well.
meetings.
And there was a lot of anguish, a lot of hard work, a lot of tears. That was probably the biggest challenge that we had. I mean, and we had to deal with so many different elements in order to deal with that. You know, it wasn't just the barony. The principality was involved in that. The kingdom was involved in that. You get the kingdom seneschal, the
Oh yeah, the bod.
the
Everybody.
principality seneschal, our seneschal, and there was a lot of fingers in that pie, and a lot of stuff that we had to deal with, a lot of forces moving us one way or the other, and we were kind of in the center of it, and trying to
Yeah, a lot of blame where people go, oh, somebody
Sure.
said the term, oh, that was the Baroness that killed Clinton. But I was totally between a rock and a hard place where the seneschal, the kingdom seneschal, and the bar telling you,
Yes.
you can't do
Oh,
it.
yeah.
At one point in time, Caitrin said the words, "I don't want to be the Baroness that killed Clinton," but I mean, it turned out that's what happened. And unfortunately, that came to a head with our reign, and we had to, with the situation that it was, we had to make the difficult decision to, because Clinton has always been one of our favorite events. I mean, when you talk about all the forces that are working, one way or the other, there was also our family, because I mean, our family had been going to Clinton. Our children have been going to Clinton. I mean, I know Kenrick and Ariana is the same thing.
Yeah.
That since they were
Since
born.
they were born.
I mean, they were at
Sarah
Clinton.
was heartbroken.
Together, who's yours?
Both of them were in Clinton in utero, and then right after they were born, it's like Clinton has been a major part of their growing up.
For sure.
So I mean, that was some of the stuff that made it very difficult. But from that came a project that we were very proud of. That it was a lot of Caitrin's idea, basically to resurrect an event that we had a lot of fun with, that happened years and years earlier with Gerhard and Amanda, which was Tournament of Armies. Of course, what
the modern version was so different.
what Caitrin had in mind and what came to be were vastly different. But I mean, that's what happens when you put a couple of game developers in charge of the event.
Yes.
But it was good.
But it turned out to be a very good event, and it lasted quite a while and was very popular. And so I feel that was probably one of our biggest achievements, our challenge, biggest achievements, and one of the brightest things that came out of our reign. As far as dealing with, other royalty, again, like with the Clinton thing, we had a lot of forces, royalties and whatnot working with us and pushing us in different directions than maybe we wanted to go, but we always had a very good relationship with the princes and princesses of Tir, the kings and queens of An Tir, and the other baron and baronesses. I mean, we had James and Glynis were the baron and baroness of Cingeadh when we stepped up, and that was fun to work with them. James is always a character, so it was always a bit of a crazy time dealing with him. Apparently, many people will tell you that they all agree that I had more decorum than Baron of Cingeadh. So that was a phrase that came up from time to time.
Our Baron is more decorum.
But I mean, I'm sure all of you are going to say the same thing. The relationship between the barons and baronesses of Lionsgate and the barons and baronesses of Cingeadh has always been a very important one. And luckily, for the most part, we've had a very friendly and cordial relationship between all the barons and baronesses of the groups that we've had, and it's worked very well, particularly at all the sea lion wars and the daffodils and whatnot, the shtick that we've created and everything.
You finished? Because I want to talk.
Okay, you can go ahead. Yeah.
It's like monopolized our
Sorry.
time here. So just personally, my highlight of being Baroness was doing the last walk down at Clinton. I feel absolutely honored to have that opportunity to do the walk down. I love the fact that I was an active combatant during it too. And when I was captured, they took away my crossbow, but they did not take away my quiver, which I had a dagger in the quiver. So I killed my guards and escaped myself. So that was my highlight, and my challenges obviously was Clinton as well. But when I stood up, the king at the time told me, you need to fix the sergeantry. and he like wanted the bar set so high. He wanted people just, they're not pulling their weight, kick them out. Like it was, I couldn't do it. Could not do it. I could not be so cutthroat with the sergeantry. So I think I did a little, did what I could, but the task he set for me, I couldn't do it. Oh, I cried and cried, couldn't do it.
Oh yeah, just
That was pretty tough.
in the chat there, Jacqueline is talking about the Lionsgate Erics. I've forgotten about that. That was a project that we instituted that in order to because we had seen in other areas where they had their Erics and they were
Gorgeous.
lovely. They were gorgeous, and they really
Ours are freaking impressive.
and so we wanted something that would stand out, that people would say, okay, this is Lionsgate, and they come and say, wow, that's really cool. And that was Caitrin's project.
I started it, but lots of people involved.
Lots of people
I'm not
involved,
taking
but no,
credit
I think Caitrin gets a lot of credit for the creation of that. But there are a lot of people that put a lot of effort into that.
That was definitely a group.
And there was a definite the barony coming together to make that happen was a very rewarding as Baron and Baroness, to see the baronies come, the people of the barony come together for a project. It's very rewarding.
Lyric ironing in my kitchen for hours.
Folding those stupid little triangles.
And I guess for us, I mean, we're all in our biggest challenge of our term.
Yeah.
And it's been extremely difficult. I mean, we had 15 months of our term, and by the time this is done, we'll have been in COVID lockdown longer than we actually got to do things. And that has been difficult for both of us, for sure.
I bet, yeah.
Which also means that we haven't had a chance to really see our great stuff, because
And we have lots of little projects on the go, taking the opportunity of COVID to try to get some things done. But probably one of the biggest achievements so far is Lion's Den, which really isn't ours. It's Kevin and Zoe and Jure, but it has been an epic achievement on the part, I think, of Lionsgate in bringing people together and giving them an opportunity to socialize and learn something and try to stay connected.
As for royals, well, our royals are all from
Here.
Lionsgate.
Yeah.
Well, the current ones.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interaction.
Yeah.
That's been pretty easy.
Our experiences have been really positive with past B&Bs, with present B&Bs all across the kingdom, and with King and Queen and Prince and Princess. So we've been very, very fortunate. And as far as the B&Bs go, I mean, each one of you has given us, a tremendous insight and valuable advice and information. Even Devon. Aurora, unfortunately, we have no way to get in touch with. She's back east, and I really don't know how to get in touch with her. But Devon is someone that we do talk to. And from the time that we talked about running, even to a week ago, he's always been a great ear, and he's somebody who has always been very kind and been very interested, as have the rest of you. So it's really a great legacy of Baron and Baronesses that Lionsgate has, and how they're willing to give so much of themselves and what they've learned to the ones that follow them.
Especially with new knees.
So yeah, it's been pretty awesome. Even with this plague that we're currently experiencing, we know that there at least is an end in sight, and we are so very much looking forward to.
We're thinking
seeing
about
your
trying to get
faces up close.
Lionsgate masks
Yeah.
made, and maybe do a fundraiser so that the
That'd
next
be
event
fun.
people can fly their colors at an event.
Because I really, when COVID, even when we had the vaccine,
I think we've
don't
just
think
lost
people
Kendrick and
would
Ariana.
stop wearing them. It's
No?
going to be a fashion
What's that?
statement.
Did our speakers just die?
Huh?
It's frozen.
No, they're all good.
Oh, Kevin's is
They're great.
frozen.
Oh, Kevin.
No, You look good, William and Caitrina, and I can hear you, and I can hear Kendrick and Ariana.
Kevin's not moving.
No, Kevin is frozen.
Kevin's
Okay,
frozen.
I think we
So
lost.
then-
I didn't notice. I
Well, why
thought
don't
we
we
fell
just-
asleep.
So,
Yeah, we lost.
There he's
Bill.
gone.
nope.
We lost Kevin.
So,
Okay, we have
Alright.
free reign now, people.
Have free reign. We can take over. Hey!
Stop it. Settle down, you lot.
Oh, there is
Oh,
there.
it's not Kevin, right?
we all finished number 4, so we're jumping to number 5, the
The
after
after
time.
time.
So that means it's
Well, I guess
Griffin and Caitrin's
That
turn
does, yes. You
to
wanna-
talk about when did you decide it was time to step down? What were lessons you took from your term? And did you learn anything new about the SCA or the Barony during your term?
Excellent questions all.
Take it away.
I start, or shall I start? Can I just jump to what I learned?
Well, okay.
You can do it whatever order you like.
Okay, when you know, as far as the stepping down is concerned, it was when we went into the thing, we kind of left it open. We said, okay, we will step up, and we never had a like saying, okay, we're only going to do one term. We left it open, and we would decide how we felt as the time came near the end of our term, whether or not we wanted to continue on. There was a lot of factors that went into the decision. One of the things, of course, it's the previous Baron and Baroness had their ending of their terms as Baron and Baroness was not.
Their first 3 years was so strong.
Yeah.
And then when they
Re-upped.
Yeah.
it wasn't so
It
great.
wasn't so good. So we
then
were kind of thinking, do we want to do?
Maybe 3 was a good time because there was no other example to follow at that point.
And also, I had other goals that I wanted to pursue. There was other things. As a Baron, I had made the decision that I would not enter into any principality, crown or coronet tourneys or crown tourneys, because it was my feeling that I had made the commitment to the barony, and so I was going to honor that commitment that I'd made. I'd sworn an oath, and I was not going to pursue any other roles, either as prince and princess or king and queen. While I was Baron of Lions Gate. So I did not enter into any principality, coronet tourneys, or crown tourneys. But I still had a personal goal in order to go and win one of those tournaments. Unfortunately, that has not occurred, but it was still, well, I had the time to do it. I figured, okay, I still have time, and I still have the ability to do this. So I wanted to continue doing that. So that was one of the factors that led to us stepping down when we did. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I would have kept going, but but no, he was, other things. We had other things to do. What was the other question?
What were lessons you took from your term?
Lessons I learned. Oh, it was, Griffin actually said an interesting thing when we were talking about this earlier in the day. And he said that prior to being Baron and Baroness, all your goals are personal. I want to do this, I want to be knighted, I want to achieve certain things. It was all stuff for yourself. But once you step up as Baron and Baroness, your goals are now for the people.
Yeah.
It's for the whole barony, and it's for the community. And it was a real shift of your personal goals are now,
And your perspective,
Your perspective
on where you're going and what you're doing, kind of thing. So it's like your ship moves outwards rather than inwards.
Yeah, so that was a interesting thing. One thing I learned that Lionsgate as a barony, and to somewhat Cingeadh, but was separate from the rest of the SCA. So when I went to a Baroness's tea at a Warren War, the Baronesses from Washington State, they were all a cohesive unit. They talked about their projects. They talked about how they actually did Barony, sergeantry trials together.
Yeah.
They would do things together. They were talked about, oh, remember we were discussing on our discussion list, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like going, well, I didn't know there was a baronial discussion list and we weren't included. And I felt really off. It was all them and Lionsgate. And so I feel that, I was thinking about it today, that Tir needs more baronies so that we as Tir can have its community that shares and spreads their baronial knowledge around.
Yeah, because I mean, like I say, we have a very close relationship with the Barons and Baronesses secret, but that's just the two of us, whereas, you know, it's like there's.
So it'd be nice if Tir had a large pool like they do in Washington State.
But An Tir is better now.
It is better now. You'll be happy to know.
Yeah. So
concerted effort.
yeah, they were separate, and then you know I kind of introduced myself and said, hey, I want to be in on these conversations, and it has grown.
That's
But Tir needs that. We need a few more barons.
I agree.
Yep.
But one of the things that, you know, it's like when you're stepping up into this position, you really, in some cases, well, in William's case, it probably not so much, because as working as seneschal, he was familiar with the workings of the SCA as a whole. But the average individual in the SCA really has very little idea of how things work on the level of running the monster that is the SCA, whether it's a branch.
The legal side of things.
Yeah, the legal side of things. But I mean, there's a lot that goes into making all this happen that the average member of the SCA does not know about or understand. You know, once you get into positions, particularly the seneschal position, or even a major officer position, or the position of Baron and Baroness particularly, there's a lot that you learn about how things work and what has to be done in order to maintain this game that we play. So there's a lot of work that goes into keeping the dream going.
Yeah. Well, I think something Caitrin said there too about the shift from personal time to working for everybody led us to where we are right now, I think. Because from the time both of us joined the SCA, we immediately became officers. And the only time we ever stopped being an officer of the barony or the principality or the kingdom was when we stepped up as Baron and Baroness. And even then we both had offices that we were holding when we did that.
Weren't supposed to, but.
And when we stepped up as Baron and Baroness, we were only going to run for the 3 years. We had said that 3 years is going to be it. And at the end of 3 years, we felt like we were finally hitting our stride. We figured it out. We were having fun. The game was great. And a year after that, we went, we don't remember who we are anymore because we've been holding offices for so long. We just needed to finally step down and take a break from it, because it had been, like you said, you're just going nonstop.
I described it as being on.
You are.
Yeah.
You are constantly.
You're on
all the time.
Yeah.
At
And
the end of the day, you're exhausted. I didn't really do anything, but I was just on.
Well, and even then, the end of the day, you're still getting phone calls from people, and the weekends where you're not on events, you're still dealing with everything else, running things. It is a really tough, very rewarding job. Very rewarding job. A 4-year term I thought was great. I mean, but I think it was the right time for us to step down, and that was mostly for Mark and Roxanne.
Biggest thing I learned was you can't make everyone happy.
Oh, that's what I wrote in my notes.
You have to be okay with that.
Hard.
Yeah.
It's funny that you should mention about 4 years, because in noble estates, there has been discussion about changing baronial terms to 2 years with the possibility of doing 6 years as a maximum, because there does seem to be a burnout. Burnout seems to be real at the 4-year mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not the 3.
Yeah.
Well, we made it very deliberate when I started. Like, I did actually go into it saying we should only run 3 years. And part of it is, again, I go back to the fact that Gerhard and Amanda were there for so long. People were kind of expecting whoever was going to go into the Baron and Baroness position were going to be there forever.
Yeah.
And I really felt it was important that we should only serve 3 years, just so that people get the idea that the Baron and Baroness change.
Yeah.
And with that, I also go with a quote that Amanda had, and it dealt with royalty. And it was like, okay, you don't like the king? Wait 6 months. With the Baron and Baroness, you don't like the Baron and Baroness? What, you're going to wait 3 years? Oh, maybe 6 years?
Yeah.
It's not always fair. When we did, when it was coming up to the 3-year mark, I did sort of, let's say, okay, I will listen to people. I will, if you want to try to convince me, go ahead. It'll be a tough sell. I don't know if it would going to be a tough sell to get me to not do 3 years. But I was willing to listen to see what people had. I think a lot of people gave up. They tried to target Margaret, but one of the things I always look at is what is best for Margaret, because she won't always realize what's best for her.
Oh, come on now. No, you do get that so much positive feedback that you do kind of vacillate back and forth for a while. But yeah, you have to take stock of what you need and realize that the barony is a totally different beast and will not want necessarily to have everybody leave. They like consistency, and so it's kind of good to encourage them to not get used to that.
I think one of the aspects that talking about the consistency and everything, and particularly with us, there was a lot of people who still had the memory of Gerhard and Amanda serving. It's like now that we've got to a point where a majority of the people in the SCA have never experienced Gerhard and Amanda as Baron and Baroness. But with us, there was still a majority that Gerhard and Amanda had been their Baron and Baroness for many, many years. So there was a lot of stuff we had to, expectations of what a Baron and Baroness should be, and it was all what Gerhard and Amanda were. And so we had to go up against that, and the whole, serving forever kind of thing was one of those. So I think that now we've got to a point where that doesn't factor in quite as much.
Was it James and Margaret or Griffin Caitrin when we finally changed the term limit of baronial officers to reflect everywhere else in the SCA? Lionsgate had no officer term limits.
What?
I think it was during our reign that we did the 2 year.
That's right, and we moved to 2 years, and we got flack for that. We got
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being officer tables for 6 years.
We had to tell officers, you're done. They know, but I've been an officer. I've had this position for 10 years. Nope, you're done.
Yeah.
Fire people, basically.
Well, I can recall, and I'm sure there's I'm not sure how many people are on here that would recall the huge political kerfuffle that occurred when the Kingdom Seneschal decided that our baronial seneschal had to step down, because it was the seneschal had been doing it for years, many years. I mean, it was like almost the same thing as like Gerhard and Amanda. They just went on and on and on, and the seneschal that was at the time, who was Malin, had been doing it forever. And the Kingdom Seneschal said, no, there has to be a limit, and so you have to step down. And that caused a huge political row.
we were all wearing armbands for quite a while. The gray armbands we had in support of Malin on that one. Yeah.
So change.
We were on the wrong side of that.
I would change stories. Something that made me feel good was, I can't remember what the it was, but I changed something. And I had somebody just but that's not the way Gerhard and Amanda did it. That's not the way we done it. That's not tradition. It's, well, tough. This is what we're doing. And later that day, Amanda said to me, "Oh, I'm so glad you changed that. I always did." Yay!
And of course,
There was one change I really loved was Margaret. You changed champions to inspirations.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, why didn't I have that idea?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And then because Margaret had done that, we were able to change over to baronial champions rather than defenders.
right.
And
I was actually the
it took a
last.
few years.
I was the last defender. I was the heavy champion or heavy defender when you changed it to champion. So I was the last defender and the first champion.
Yeah.
And then
And
change
I remember,
to inspiration.
remember you guys, I think I talked to you about that, and you had somebody had an inspiration or a champion, but it now would now be an inspiration, and they were a fighter, and they went down south.
Yes.
It just
Yeah.
got tattooed
exactly.
because somebody went, "Oh, you're the baronial champion?"
Yeah.
Not
Which-
realizing what it was.
Yeah, and they just got lit up, but they were brand new, but
It
they
was
were
a good change.
inspiring the Baroness, not
Yeah.
won a tournament.
Something similar to that, there was at a crown tournament when they were pulling people over to the other side of the line and during the invocation and the challenge line, and they were pulling fighters over to the knight side, and they said, well, anybody's a champion of their branch,
Oh, no.
come over. And I was Amanda's champion at the time, and somebody said, oh, you're a champion of Lionsgate, so you go over. And I was like, I'd only been fighting for like a few years, so I was like, and there I am on the knight side. I'm going, holy crap!
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
just
obviously-
tidied it up.
So obviously we don't have an after time,
It's like, why didn't we think about that years ago?
but when we stepped up, we figured we would do 3 years and then
Let somebody
have
else.
enough.
And a lot of that had to do with the people that we ran with, because there are so many amazing people that were interested. So we really thought 3 years and we'll step
And,
down.
and our 3 years will be up this coming November. But we've lost this giant chunk.
Yeah.
So we actually just let Her Majesty know today that we are going to do the official re-up thing and have to get the populace vote. And now I guess we're letting our citizens watching.
Yeah, there seems to be a general consensus opinion that that's a good idea. I think.
So council's on
You're
Wednesday,
wrong.
so we'll make this all official, but now you all know that we're gonna
Definitely we're robbed of,
do it again.
Yeah.
We're gonna do another term.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I could do a lot more than 15 months, which is kind of what it feels like it has been so far. So
We feel we have some lessons to learn. But
absolutely.
And you'll let the barony teach you.
That's right. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
would any of you guys do it again?
Oh, let's put it this way. Never say never.
Yeah.
Never say never.
How about you?
And let's let people step up. But if
Mhm.
certain circumstances came up, I could see us throwing our names in again.
Okay.
But it's not going to happen soon.
I'd like
Yeah.
to.
And we've talked about, let's see what everything looks like when things are back to
Yeah.
whatever we call what we get back to.
Mm.
Let's all be a whole panel and run against each other. No.
That'd be awesome.
The best man
So
wins.
we can go here.
No,
Maybe
you.
we advertisement for Lionsgate that every past B&B would be willing to do it again. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin.
Yeah. Okay. So first off, thank you for carrying on while I had some technical difficulties. I'm glad that we were able to get through topic 5. Topic 6 was sort of the wrap up that I had imagined a lot of the sort of joining of the different conversational threads happening. But of course, because you're all such experts at what you're doing, you've already covered a lot of this.
Just keep talking.
Right? Thank God. We got another 27 minutes at least, Your Excellency.
Well, that's the thing is, we're all friends and we all sit around and talk with each other anyway. This is, this isn't.
So I just had a couple of points, and then I know that there was at least one question from the floor, but I'm going to ask now that if there's anybody who is listening and would like to ask a particular question, please message directly Jure or myself. You don't have to put it in the general chat. That's okay. The one thing that I had put on here was that traditionally in recognition for the service done to the kingdom, territorial barons and baronesses are given court titles. So 6 of the 8 of you already have your court baronies, and there's every indication that the other 2 will be joining when they decide to step down. What kind of community do you have after you step away from the role? I know that there was lots of conversations about how you talked with each other and interacted with each other and followed each other's examples stepping up. But now that you've sort of stepped back and away, what do you view as your part of the community of barons and baronesses of Lionsgate past, essentially?
I know
Anyone
with
can
me,
jump in on this.
answering any questions the sitting baroness has at any time. Ariana knows that she can message me about anything, and I will pass on whatever knowledge I have or where I think she could find it.
With me, that it doesn't take into consideration because Kenrick's awesome and he's got Griff. So I mean, he and I talked very briefly at the beginning, but other than that, doing a great job. So
We've always felt really comfortable that we could come to everyone. I mean, I jokingly but seriously made a Facebook page called the Helping Kenrick and Ariana Not Suck page when we first stepped up, and you guys were all on it, and it was.
I think we called you out on that one too.
Yeah.
It's great to have people to ask questions of, and if you're just plain nervous about something and you need somebody to just say, "You're fine, it's good." And you guys have been awesome for that.
I think as royals step down, they become part of what are the groups?
Well,
like the Valorous Estate and Love and stuff like that. Those are official, and we don't have an official.
We should.
Good group like that.
Yeah.
We should. We don't have an official, but
We could create an order. We could create an order like that. We have the power to do that.
I do feel that we have a strength or a power. We have a power of respect in that. Like, and I think, we were saying, like, we exercise that when the baronesses got together and asked the king to recognize someone, it was done right away, because as a group of these women approaching the king, we did have a certain amount of influence.
He did back up as we approached.
Smart man.
If we were just 3 or 4 just women on our own, might not have had that same impact. So I think if we may not have an official order, but I think as past Baron and Baronesses, we do have a certain notoriety or respect that we have earned.
Comradeship. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, amongst the barons and baronesses of Lionsgate, I mean, this group here, we're all friends. I mean, we get together socially outside of the SCA as well as inside the SCA, and we're all very.
You've all been in my house.
Yes, we've all very close to one another. So we talk quite a bit on a regular basis, and that so that beyond the fact that we were baron and baroness, there's a friendship there anyways. But it also extends beyond the borders of Lionsgate. Yeah. I mean, there are many barons and baronesses outside that we have been in contact with and have become close to and friends with, and have discussions on various different things. And there's a connection there and a known element that it's like.
We are connected.
We are connected. This is something we have experienced.
Common experience.
I think we need a drink for that one.
It's an invader! Yay!
I'm in.
Yes.
But yeah, there's a known quantity and a connection between all people who have served as baron and baroness in the kingdom and in the society that we can relate to what each other has gone through.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And I think the people feel that, because at events prior to shutdown, People would not hesitate to go to Caitrin or go to Margaret or go to Caitrina if I wasn't available. It's like, I'm gonna go to, and it's absolutely, I think people still have that sense of them being Lionsgate. Well, they are Lionsgate, but I mean a Baroness of Lionsgate. And I think that goes a long way, that it never goes away.
Mhm.
But not the guys.
Hey.
There's still the comradeships, as I say, and even with the different baron and baronesses, I think Thorwald's referred to it as the unlanded riffraff.
Oh yeah.
Of An Tir, yeah.
Actually, I was thinking about, we're talking about people on this panel who contributed to our thoughts and when we stepped up and all that kind of stuff. And then there's other barons and baronesses from other branches. I mean, Thorwald in particular, I had discussions with him on a number of occasions before I stepped up as baron and baroness. And
You stepped up as Baroness? Cool.
well, I stepped up
I
as
knew that was
the
coming.
baronial. The
I
baronial
will
coronet.
point
I'm
out,
allowed to rib him.
I will point out that in the OP,
Thank you, Squire.
I was listed as the 4th Baroness of Lionsgate.
Nice.
I love it. They can't take that back, James.
They did somehow. It's not there now, but it was. I should have got a screen capture at the time. I should have got the screen capture at the time.
That's awesome.
I should check that. On my OP today, it says that I was a rapier marshal.
Yeah, she's a rapier marshal and she's got 2 cornucopias. I don't know how that works.
Huzzah.
I was like worried there. I was like looking at it and you got way more awards than I do. And then I saw some of them were a little bogus, but she still has
Yeah, it
more.
also says I've been Kingdom List. I was never Kingdom List. So
She still has more awards than I do. It doesn't matter how.
So this is Daisy.
Hi, Daisy.
Hello, Daisy.
She wanted in.
She likes to
Want it
climb.
on the video. She's on the Lionsgate YouTube channel now. So.
Yeah. Luckily, she doesn't use claws when she climbs me. She just runs, and momentum
Straight up her
gets her
back.
going.
we just on random stuff now.
Well, let
Or have you got
Kevin,
something?
Kevin do your last little spiel, and then we can do random stuff and open it up, and everyone can talk.
Somebody said
Yeah.
something
I've got one question from the floor, actually.
Oh, great.
Bryn wanted to know what advice you would give future barons and baronesses.
Oh, good question.
Mm.
Do it.
Don't have a pandemic.
Yeah.
Did all of that get through?
So
Cat.
Okay.
I think that if you think, oh, can I do this? Maybe I can't do this. You're not alone. You would never be alone. The Baron and Baronesses are really standing on the shoulders of all the officers, and especially the seneschal. So there's so much support. There's so much help that if you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I can do it, or maybe I don't have what it takes. Yeah, you do, because
And have people
Yeah.
like Kevin and
There's-
Marina and Jure.
there's such a community to help you that nobody's alone. So do it.
But on the flip side of that, you gotta you have to realize that this is a major commitment. It's
Yeah.
not just like, everybody says, oh, the Baron and Baroness is just a ceremonial thing. You're just there to be the face of the king and queen at events and that kind of stuff. But there's a lot more of it that goes into that. There's a major commitment that has to be made. You're planning and people are asking you for advice, for it's like, well, what is your what do you think about this, what do you think about that, and
A gazillion questions. Like,
yeah.
Should the table? Do you want the tablecloth to go black, white, black, or do you want them to go white, black, white? Like,
Well, on that, I think Amanda had wonderful advice. What would you like to do?
well, everybody wants to please you, and I'm like, I would be pleased if you made this decision.
I
Have
guess I would.
storage space.
Well, yeah, I would suggest, and this would apply to not just Baron and Baronesses, but Prince and Princesses and King and Queens, any kind of those positions. It hasn't affected me so much, but Ariana for sure, is to have a space that is yours, and that
Yeah.
you have somebody who knows that you need some you time, and that person is going to stop anybody else. I mean, we have a trailer and people
it's not-
knock on the door to
It's not a
find
big
out where
deal.
she is.
It's not a big deal.
It is a big deal. You needed that time away and you
it's
could
a
not
very
find it
big-
at an event.
Refresh
It
time.
happens, and
Yeah.
the good outweighs the bad. The bad is so minuscule. It's just not worth mentioning. The good is amazing.
But it is. Having,
One of the
having that
one
time.
of the major things that we were told, and when we stepped up, one of the pieces of advice that we were given was you got to learn to know when a decision has to be made right away, or when you can put something off. And people are going to come to you with all sorts of things. You know, they're going to say, "Oh, I think we should do this," or "I think we should do that," or "This should." And you know, the phrase, learning the phrase, "I'll take that under advisement," or "I will think about that," "I will put something and get back to you," is very important. But if you say, "I'll think about that and get back to you," you got to get back to them.
Yeah.
You can't like take, "I'll think about that and get back to you," and then blow them off. You have to like actually think about it and get back to them. But you don't have to say yes or say no right away. You know, there's something you got to think about. Okay, what is important right at the moment, and what can wait? And you can say, okay, well, this can wait. Okay, I'll think about that for a while and I'll get back to you. And then something else that, you know, it's like, this is something that has to be dealt with right away. And learning how the difference between the two and how to deal with that is very, very important. Otherwise, it's just your brain's going to explode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my biggest piece of advice would be to set hours, because especially with social media, you get messages at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and right away I want to answer their question, but like Griffin said, just let them know, I see your message. I will get back to you after I've thought about it, or, you know, slept.
Yeah.
We had the advantage that it's like it hasn't been that long. You know, well, I sometimes think it hasn't been that long since we've been in Baroness, but it has been quite a while. But I mean, Facebook wasn't quite the thing it was when we were Baron and Baroness. And so the main way to get in contact with us was by phone. We didn't have cell phones.
We didn't have cell phones. I got a cell phone.
Yeah.
We got cell phones when we stepped up.
Yeah, the becoming Baron and Baroness forced us to get cell phones. But that was the way to get in contact with us. You know, it's like you phone us. And that there wasn't a lot of the Facebook, the instant message, the text messages, and everything wasn't quite as prevalent as it is now. So now it's difficult to step away from the forces that are trying to communicate with you at all times.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think everything needs to be really important right now, when often it isn't. And you do need to weigh in different things, because everybody's got their own agenda, why they want something passed. And you might look at it and say, well, yeah, but how is that going to affect other groups? How is that going to affect this part of the barony and stuff like that? And see, as a baron and baroness, you have to look at the whole picture. And you do need to take time of it. And yes, sometimes if it's just, you know, how do you want the tablecloths to go? You can just snap off a decision, because in the end, it doesn't really matter what decision you gave them. But there's others that they're going to need to have a decision thought about and looked at on it there.
Kevin's up.
Other questions, Kevin, or are you frozen again?
It looks like Kevin's frozen again.
Oh, he moved a little bit.
He's sort of semi-frozen. He's sort of slushy. Oh, no, he's got it.
Okay, well,
if he's not here, I'm gonna bring up the thing.
okay, can I ask a follow-up then? Would it be okay if I?
Yeah, absolutely.
How important do you guys feel being partners? Like being in relation with each other?
I was going to say that I was going to say that, you know, if you're considering, choose your partner wisely.
I think it helps to be
a couple.
I think it helps.
Talk to each other all the time. You're with each other all the time, so that definitely makes it easier.
I think it really helps
now we
because
have-
you understand each other faster
Yeah, that helps.
than if somebody who wasn't a couple.
Communication is better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
you have to have really, really good communication. It doesn't mean you have to be a partner in real life, but you have to have some well-defined ways that you communicate. You make sure that the value that you place on your opinions are equally valid to the other person, so that in the long run, it's a partnership moving forward.
Mhm.
It's
I mean,
a sharing of the work as well. There's a lot of jobs that both the Baron and Baroness need to be involved in. And as a couple, it's really easy for us to do. But there are other jobs that are specifically Baron does this, Baroness does this, but you still have that other person to, so yeah, communication is number one.
I thought I knew Griffin until we started. I figured when we stood up, he would have the idea, because he's the thinker, but I would do all the talking. And our first court, he stood up there and just blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I didn't get to speak. Wow. It was like,
Okay, everyone else was going, oh my God, Griffin's talking.
Yeah, that was one of the things that stepping up as Baron
yeah.
taught to the Baronies, that I
Yep.
was not in fact mute.
One of my favorite memories on that line, you had just stepped up when we were in Cingeadh, and James was ranting, as James can do. Their Baron James.
Just Baron James, not Baron James the Just.
Yes, yes.
That's James.
But he was going on about Lionsgate, the evil people coming over and throwing their forces, and it went on for probably 10-15 minutes, and it was good. It was really good shtick. And he said we're going to defeat the forces of Lionsgate or die trying. And there was a bit of silence, and Griffin just stood up and said, "We invite the people of Cingeadh to die trying." And sat down, and it was like, okay, this is going to be good.
So did being Baron help your cadet career, Griff?
I think it definitely contributed to my ability to be a cadet officer. I think there's a lot of stuff that I learned as Baron that has contributed to my success as a cadet officer.
Cool.
So
Just public speaking.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as a leadership role. Yeah.
but I was just thinking it's interesting that in Lionsgate, you're looking at the past barons and baronesses and the current baron and the baroness, is that we were all couples. Whereas that's not always the case, and I've seen other barons and baronesses in different areas, or even barons and barons, or I'm not sure if there's been a baroness and baroness, but I know there's baron and barons. But there are also, couples that are not a romantic couple, they're not married or not in a relationship like that. And I mean, there's people that have applied for the position in Lionsgate that have been in that way as well. But we have not had that here, so it would be interesting. I would be interested to see how the dynamic works in that situation, because I have not personally experienced that where
So who are you thinking of running with next time?
Do we have more questions, Kevin, or?
Yeah, I've just got one sort of wrap-up question. What do all of you see, or how do you see the SCA being different when we all come back?
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
We really don't
Let me
know.
get my crystal ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really hard.
I mean,
Because
there's so
we've seen a
many
lot-
things going on right now, even regarding not looking at the COVID aspect there, that we're seeing the EDI stuff come in there. We're seeing different aspects on that. We're seeing people being called out for different things that might have been perfectly acceptable in the past. So I think as we move forward, we are looking, I think the society as a whole has to look at what is best for the society. So ignoring the COVID and everything like that, how do we change? The SCA obviously does change. Speaking as someone that's, you know, sort of played in the science fiction field, I will bring up sort of something that was said to me back in, I think it was 1979. He was not getting involved. He created his own medieval group because the SCA was getting too serious. When we stepped up as Baron and Baroness, I was getting that same feedback. So the message coming through in all those times is always the same. Oh, this SCA takes itself too seriously at times. The SCA is always going to be changing. There's always going to be things going on where people turn around and say, oh, it's not the SCA that I remember.
Mm.
It's going to evolve. And we're going to get used to it being evolving and stuff like that. How it's going to evolve, I'm going to always hope that it's evolving for the better. That's going to be my hope on it. And we'll see. I think I'll be accurate on that.
I think in the short term, I mean, obviously there's everybody is having a different reaction to what has been going on over the last year. And everybody will have a different reaction when we finally get back to the point where we're able to get back together in groups and whatnot. And so it'll be interesting to see. I'm very heartened. I don't know if a lot of you watched the live stream of the Lockhack Crown Tournament this last weekend, and it was interesting to watch. It was a bit, you know, it was good to see people getting together and, you know, an SCA tournament that looked like an SCA tournament. It didn't look that much different than the SCA tournaments that, you know, we've seen in the past and everything. Everybody was, the pomp and circumstance were there. Everybody was there having a good time, and fighting was really good. So it caught me in two different minds. You know, one is like, it's good to see that this is possible to go back to what we were doing before, but it's also like I was feeling very saddened and homesick, I guess is the term, for what we are missing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's like there's a thing that we have all been involved in, that we love to go and be with our friends and everything, to participate in this game that we all love. And, you know, I'm watching people on this live feed, and they're all participating in it. We can't. But so it's something that I'm looking forward to, the point where we were able to do that again. But again, it's like, you know, there's still that thing in the back of my head. Do I want to go where there's a whole bunch of people all crowded together? And do I want to go across the border again, or all that kind of thing?
They limited the amount of people that were allowed to be there.
There were still precautions.
Yeah, I mean, there's still precautions taking place, but it did have a real event feel to it. So.
It would have been nice if Eric could remember his shield.
He made a brand new shield. He forgot it.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Good old An Tir Duke. Yep. Oh, I'm gonna leave my shield at home.
Yeah. Oh, I got my armor ready to go. Oh, I forgot something. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because we're finding there's a lot of new people, and I think being on lockdown, a lot of people that have not found the SCA before now have time to discover new things, and as a result, I think new people are finding us. I think there's going to be the opposite as well. I think a lot of people are discovering, wow, I have money that I have not had for years. And I think that's going to be a deciding factor, at least for a while, for some people too. They like having a bit more money in their pocket, and maybe it was time for a break. But I'm hoping whatever way it goes, I'm hoping that they come back home, because you know, I think the SCA is here forever and will always be here for them. So I hope they find their way back if they do take a break.
Yeah, and I just remind everybody, be gentle with yourself. You know, it's okay to feel that reserve or that gung-ho, but also be gentle with other people as well, to respect their boundaries too.
Yeah, for sure.
Any
So,
other questions, Kevin? Or
your
can we open it
questions-
to a general?
People.
We're doing that wait time. So just because we're
I was just curious if other people do that.
we're at 8:59 now by my clock. I did want to wrap us up. But we're not necessarily kicking anybody out. We're just not hit the usual end of our sessions. So that brings
Apparently, we need to deal with Kevin's
19.
My seneschal's having problems.
Yeah, so I'm going for a tunnel now.
And taken tonight.
Okay, bye.
Valiant effort, Kevin.
Was that chicken something?
Kumquat? What? I missed that.
So does anyone have any questions?
What we can do is Jermaine could change it back from spotlight. I don't think- We're not getting you, Kevin.
Bless him. I'll message you. Yeah, bless
Yeah.
him. Bless his little heart.
So we can change it back. There we go. Change it back from spotlight to general, and then if people want to just chat, we can
Or
chat.
type something in chat.
He's changing it back from spotlight, so it'll be whoever is talking
Yeah, will be.
will be the one who's up front, and then it wouldn't be a raise your hand. Well, yes, it'll be a Kushag is raising her hand, so Kushag obviously has a question or a comment, but then everybody can. This is more. It's a bit of a social, and it's also.
Hey, who put you in charge?
Yeah, I know, right?
You voted.
All right.
So Kushag, did you have something to say?
I was just going to say, having missed the feel of an event, one of the comments that my daughters had last night when we got together for our backyard family dinner, socially distanced, of course, was that it felt like we were in an event because we had the pavilion up, we had the tables, we were out in the fresh air.
Nice.
Lovely.
And it just, so as we can safely now, if we're getting homesick for the SCA, find yourself your safe bubble and get together with them and sort of ease ourselves back.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
And as we can expand the bubble, we can expand the bubble a bit, right?
Yep.
So we do have some questions from the audience while Kevin gets his speakers working again and turns off his auto tune, which is the best comment. Russell Danescombe, who is somewhere out there in the ether watching this, I'm not sure who he's watching over his shoulder is watching, but anyway, as Baron and Baroness, where did you draw inspiration from in being inspirations to the barony? And if you say you're inspirations, you're disqualified.
Sounds like Russell.
Repeat the question.
Well, I think the thing is that where did you draw an inspiration
to be an inspiration to the barony as Baron and Baroness?
I mean, of
be
course,
yourself.
yeah, you can be yourself. But I mean, of course, you know, when I came into the SCA, Gerhard and Amanda were the Baron and Baroness of Lionsgate, and they were the heart and soul of this barony. And most people took their cues from them. And so a lot of my feeling of what a Baron and Baroness should be was formed by Gerhard and Amanda.
Definitely.
So, I mean,
When I grow up, I want to be just like them.
yeah, I can't overstate enough the influence that them as Baron and Baroness had on me growing up as a member of the SCA and then as a Baron of Lionsgate. There was a lot of that there. And that was one of the reasons why when we stepped up, I made the decision that I wanted to be sworn in as Baron of Lionsgate with the original, the original baronial, or well, Gerhard and Amanda's coronets, baronial coronets. And so when I was
Those were a gift from Eisenmark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
So I remember during our step up, they took the newer coronets off Aurora and Devon and put them back, and then those behind the court switched them, and then when the king went to place them on ours, they handed him these beat up old things, and the king just goes, "What the hell is this?" You can just hear him go, what the hell are these?"
But yeah, that was, I wanted to have that continuity from Gerhard and Amanda to us, and so that was part of my feeling in that. And that, like I say, I took a lot of my cues as what a Baron and Baroness should be from them.
Oh, we really didn't have any other.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I was like,
My inspiration during my entire term as Baron is sitting beside me, and
Oh,
I had only not the cat.
We haven't had him that long.
That's not the inspiration. I wanted her to be Baroness more than anything. It worked.
Yeah, I did bring a hanky.
oh, you just answer like that. I'm just kidding. Do you have your
You've obviously
giant
forgotten.
cry hanky?
Yep.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you've forgotten what it's like to wear the coronets if you don't have your hanky with you.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the sound is.
What?
That's one of the drums echoing.
I mean, for me, it was Gerhard and Amanda, both of them, Gerhard and Amanda.
Baroness. What did you take as inspiration?
They were just out of this world
To be
as Baron and Baroness. And if you had told me back then that I was going to be
Just like you.
filling his shoes, I never would have believed you. But he was a pretty amazing man. I mean, I don't know. I know a bunch of you were at my knighting, but when Ariana gave me the cup that
Yeah, that was pretty.
that
yeah,
Gerhard had given her to give to me when I got knighted.
because he knew he wouldn't be there. So he gave it to me and asked me to put it away and give it to him when he was knighted. So it was pretty
But he also knew I was going to be
thoughtful.
knighted.
He also, yeah, yeah.
So, and then when my own knight became Baron, he became my inspiration for what to be as a Baron.
Okay, I'm gonna leave now.
As you already pointed, that should be one of the bingo cards. Is if you've ever made a Baroness cry, feel free to take a drink.
well, you should take a few drinks there, Kevin, because you made many Baronesses correct.
I think.
So yeah, I've been made to cry both good and bad.
So I want to talk about one of the we talk about highlights of terms of when we were in Baron Baroness, and one of the things, I don't know if Caitrin wants to add to this one here, but the and any of the other Baronesses, it's one of the very special things about being a Baroness of Lions Gate is the sergeantry. And one of the pictures that I put forth here to put on the
Yeah, where are the pictures?
on the
Or
what
that
that was
was
the
the
slide
video,
the slideshow
right.
that was at the start
Right.
there was at our first sergeant's tourney, Caitrin's first sergeant's tourney, and taking her first member of the sergeantry, which was Kevin as a courtier, and that was a very emotional weekend, and I'm sure for, I don't want to speak for Caitrin, but I know it was very special and important for her.
But so the rest of the women on this panel, I'm sure, agree that it is so difficult. What a difficult day sergeants is. You want everybody to do well, but you have to say no to somebody. I don't know if the rest of you guys turned anybody down, but that was
It's a very hard process.
hardest thing I ever did.
To do.
I was a wreck.
And yet, you know, there's that special bond.
Yeah.
Gille is my first sergeant, and it's just a special bond that you have
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah, it was the most difficult thing I ever had to do, and I had to do it a couple times for one candidate, and broke my heart, and he
Right,
helped
yeah.
me heal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I
a
remember-
hard day. Hard day for the candidates, hard day
Yeah.
for the Baroness.
I think
Take
there was,
us another drink for everybody.
Yeah, no kidding. That's very difficult.
I think one of the things that I remember from that was the first time, I think it was Caitrin, when she had to say no the first time. And I was herald of that event. And it was the first time I got to see behind the scenes of that process. And her reaction to the difficulty that took. I thought about that from every Baroness tournament since. It was the first time I saw that behind the scenes and saw how tough it was on the Baronesses.
One thing the sergeants did for me my last year was when I talked to them and suggested that a representative sit with me when I talked to the candidates, whether it was a yes or a no, that I had a member of the sergeantry with me, and it was Sergeant Miles.
An idea.
And my God, it was such a help. Because you've got so much information you're trying to relay to the candidates that it's much easier to have someone else in the sergeantry to help you with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also so they know it's not just you, you know, it's not just the Baroness saying no. It's a whole committee, you know, the sergeantry themselves. It's a group decision, but you have to say it alone. It comes off more personal than it is.
And we've only had one, we've had multiple applicants, but only one has actually tried on the year, and Malice made it. We haven't had to turn
Without a
anybody down
doubt.
yet.
Without a doubt, yeah.
No turning down yet. Hopefully ever.
No, we will beat the odds. I don't want to weep.
I mean, I got to say, that's one of the things that surprised me the most. One of the things that surprised me quite a lot about being Baroness is the moment when your emotions catch you off guard. I'm a very stable person. I'm reserved. I don't show a lot of unhappiness or tears, and then all of a sudden you're up there, and then all of a sudden, it's like, what the hell? Where'd that come from?
I remember seeing some emotion when you got called up for Pelican.
Yeah, they were
yeah,
tears,
but that was
though.
a different kind of
It was
emotion.
a different emotion, yes. Yeah. You glared daggers at me.
Well, that's kind of for the both of you.
I don't think I cried when I was a- It was tough. My Pelican it was like I was released as Baroness and then called back up and made a Pelican. And that's a pretty emotional day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Ariana didn't even hear them call her name.
No, I was talking.
And I stood up with her, and I'm pulling on her hand.
And I'm looking at him like, what are you doing? I am talking.
Oops.
Yeah.
Kiva had a question, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
Where'd it go?
Something about, is there anything, I'm curious if there was one thing you wanted to achieve during your reign that you didn't get to complete.
We're still in, so it doesn't really apply to us.
It doesn't apply to you.
Right.
For me, it was the awards. Because we had the awards we were trying to get charters created for and medallions made for, and we didn't get all of them completed, but close. Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, we did a few. I can't recall anything in particular.
I can't think of anything too much in particular. Like I say, we kind of knew we were transition and trying to make things even. There were some awards that we we're looking at. You know,
Whoop.
Oh, change the phone.
If Margaret turns her sound on, we can probably be able to hear it.
okay, I know what it is. I got my.
Oh,
I'm
we
on a
can hear it
different
through
one.
Margaret's mic.
There we go.
Easy.
There we go. She turned me off on hers. I was just going to say, yeah.
She turned you off. Hmm.
No, I turned mine off. He was already turned off.
I'm also on a tablet. So we get a bit of reverb between each other on it there. So yeah, awards, there was nothing in particular. We also were looking at some of the awards. The ANS had been an award that had been sort of biting each of the barons because we couldn't get the Lionsgate pinion passed. We kind of bypassed it and just went with a charter. We'll give you a charter. A warrant. That was it. A warrant. We'll give you a warrant to say you got the baronial warrant to produce goods for the barony on the ANS side of it there to sort of bypass that. We were looking at the load as a name too. I think what we were looking at the load for was it was actually going to be different colors of loads for each of our champions. So we actually did for the cut and thrust. We actually did up a award certificate for the cut and thrust champion that actually had a loat on it, but it was a ferocious kind of wolf-looking loat rather than an equine-looking loat.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that in particular that we wanted to achieve that we didn't achieve. I mean, obviously, the situation with Clinton, we would have liked to have turned out differently than it did. But
yeah,
again, at this point in time, it's water under the bridge, and
yeah.
it is what it is, and a lot of interesting stuff came from that, and hopefully, I mean, I know that there are things in the works that could come from that. I mean, it's still there's interesting things happening in that regard, but I don't want to.
And I was going to say that's one of the things we looked at as well. Is like, let's get a couple tournament of armies, but towards the end of our reign, we were looking and at least sort of put some feelings out there, like how willing would things be if to have us back, knowing that there were a whole bunch of hoops that we would have to be jumping through should we do it and stuff. And so that was something that never really quite came to pass, because essentially if you want to say the intelligence report sort of came back to us as, no, it's not the right time right now.
Mm-hmm.
Kenrick and Ariana, there's a follow-up question. What is something?
Yeah, I saw.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Thanks, Lovedea. So Lovedea has asked for Kenrick and Ariana, instead, what would you hope you'll accomplish before your term is over? So, fair question.
Events.
I think yours is the sergeantry.
Yeah, there's a lot of little things that I'd like to do. I have a real thing about the sergeantry, the courtiers as well, where I feel that they are not valued like they should be. And as a result, I don't think they value themselves as they should be. So I have a lot of thoughts and plans for that I'm, working towards. That's probably the biggest for me, because I have a real soft spot there. Another one that we're really big on is finding new venues, because we're in such dire need of land and of day sites.
Yeah.
Trying to put together something that, I don't know, there's got to be something. So we've had lots of thoughts, Kevin and the crew. We've talked about doing, what was it called, Kevin? Voyager or Pathfinder, something where we send people out.
Program.
The Explorer program,
Explorer,
and this thought was just before COVID. We'll send people out and we'll knock on doors. Okay, yeah, it's not happening right now. So like a lot of it is on hold. But I think the biggest thing for me, and I know this sounds silly, I would really like to end this time being at least as good as the people that were before me, because I really don't want to end going, wow, be nice to have Griffin and Caitrin back.
I just when you're talking about this Explorer program, I just had this picture of Queen Elizabeth sending out her, all these guys on the ship saying, "Go find me new lands" and everything.
I like it.
Yeah.
Sir Francis Drake on the Golden Hind going out and discovering new worlds, new lands to bring back to the Queen. So.
I like it.
It's been
Plant a flag on their
strange every month.
property.
It's been very strange every month at council.
Sir Walter, what a big ship I have around you.
No one's exploring.
Okay.
Oh no, Kevin.
What did you say?
Oh, Kevin.
It's fine as long as he doesn't speak.
Yeah, no, that's pretty.
Yeah.
Absolutely classic.
Since we were talking about awards there, one of my good memories that I have of giving out awards, because I think that's also one of the fun things for being a Baron, is to be able to give out awards, was one Lion's Claw that I gave out. And when you give out that for service, often the thing is, and it was mentioned that, Ariana was busy doing something else there when she got called up for Pelican. Sometimes people are often busy when you want to give them an award. So we actually had Court. We got Court. We had Court stand up and we walked over the gate.
Yeah.
Where the person that was going to get the award, Wendy, was running gate. So we literally brought all of Court over to gate, and I liked doing that. That was kind of a fun little shtick to do on it there, and I'm sure everyone else had some of their fun shticks to do in handing out the awards. The other side is Gerhard and Margaret. We talk about communication on there. Sometimes if you're a couple, there can be some communication that's assumed to happen. There were many times when I was in Court when Gerhard would be behind me as herald and would say, "And the Baron has words," and they never told me what I was supposed to be talking about. So I kind of like, okay, which words am I having? Is it just the general court, event opening it? Was it something specific? Did you guys have a discussion and not tell me? And I think in some cases they just assumed that they had talked to me, but
Her Excellency is the one that handed me that card that said His Excellency has words. So
you're laying all blame off of yourself.
Look, has James ever had a problem speaking at the drop of a pin?
Not.
I would say no. This can also be open talk for everybody too, right? Not just about the barony and all that.
So here's the thing about barony, about being a baroness. There are so many royals in and around Lions Gate. We never have an event without a royal presence.
Or very rarely.
Very rarely.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that especially when I think about years ago when Gerhard and Amanda were seated, they were the center of attention. They would, especially like baronial banquet, they're in the middle of the table. It's their event. They are the center of attention, whatever. But when it came to our turn, we have this baronial banquet and we're off to the side because there's the king and the queen, there's the prince and princess. They're like, but this is our banquet, this is our event. And I found sometimes you really have to swallow your pride and know that, yeah, this is a baronial event, but you're like, oh my God, royals are here again. Am I ever gonna, be master of my own domain? No, they're here again. And that's something for potential or current Baron and Baronesses to think about, that so many times It's not your show, even though you think it should be your show. It's not. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I would think that because it has been so long with Tyria Royals around. I mean, An Tir is one thing because, I mean, yes, recently Tyrie's been doing really well on the An Tir crown circuit, but that isn't always the case. But Tyrie is always going to be there, and I think that the new Baron and Baronesses continuing on are going to see it as not as they're stepping on our toes, but this is just the way it's done now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
We're used to Amanda and Gerhard being there and nobody else being around.
Yeah.
Right.
So in the past, we did have royals come. We invited them every time. And often Amanda and Gerhard were still in the center, and they'd have the king and queen to one side, they have the prince and princess to the other side, and we'd fill out the rest of the table with officers.
Yeah.
And that was how it was.
But they were
Royals.
invited guests. They were invited guests. Now there's royals at every single line.
Yeah. And and that was the other thing too, is for so long, royalty was in West Kingdom. Royalty was down in Portland and Seattle. They didn't necessarily travel. It's only since Tyrie that we've been starting to get a lot of royals at local events all the time.
We create our own royals.
Yeah.
That's the thing for a lot of people.
Because that problem, yeah.
For a lot of people, since Tyrie is longer than they've been in the SCA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to them, it's normal that Tyrie is the focal.
Yeah.
And Tir is there, obviously, if they're there, but it's not always a guarantee that An Tir is going to be there, but pretty much it's a guarantee that Tyrie is going to be at a Lionsgate event because we're the easiest barony to get to in Tyrie.
Yeah.
At the baronial banquet in 1981, which was right after the first An Tir crown tourney was fought, our guests at the head table included the King and Queen of the West, the Prince and Princess of An Tir, and the Crown Prince and Princess of An Tir. That was, that was the most royalty we've ever had, but often we did have the King and Queen of the West as well as the Prince and Princess of An Tir, and sometimes their heirs.
Yeah.
I think
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say that I think this actually kind of supports the idea that we need more baronies in Tier B to keep the royals busy. So it's not always coming to Lionsgate. So there you go.
Yeah.
I think for us, some of the most fun we had as Baron and Baroness, most particularly, was going to Ramsgard. But going off to some of the other smaller branches who would have big events, and sometimes we're the only royal presence there to see for a couple
and
of
you're
years.
treated like royalty.
And it's not our event. So, yeah, it was always a lot of fun for us. We really appreciated, for us particularly, it was Ramsgard at the time.
Yeah.
But visiting some of the branches of Tyrie like that, it was an honor and a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
So one of the things that because I've been around Savrik and Dala and Savrik and all that sort of stuff, and then also being just in Lionsgate for as long as I have, I've seen a lot of the comings and goings. And one of the things I hope if I ever do win Prince is one of the things I said with Tatiana was like, I probably won't come to much Lionsgate events, like because of what you guys have been talking about. Like it's amazing how much that presence is there. It's like, yeah, like as Prince, I'd probably spend more of my time up north than anywhere else, not because they don't get represented very much, or they do still, but it's just like exactly what you guys are talking about. I've heard it before. It's like, yeah, like the king overshadows everything, right? So it just to give the Baron and Baroness just that time to have some alone time, as it were, with their population.
It also depends who it is, because we've had some that, no, I'm king or I'm queen, prince, whatever it is, I'm going to be in head table. And then we've also had another, I remember Alfar said to me one time, he goes, no, this is your banquet. You know, I'm just a visitor. It's your show. I'll just sit here at the end of the table. It was really sensitive to that. So, you know, it depends who the individuals are.
Yes.
Yeah.
My
Yeah,
biggest
everything
challenge
can
was
vary.
awards. Sorry?
I was just going to say everything can sort of vary between who it is and everything like that. I don't think we really had an issue with it too much. There was a lot of royals, obviously, at events and stuff. But yeah, as you say, it's just sort of starting to become part of the norm.
Yeah, I think it's becoming more common now.
Yeah, the only challenge I had was because it's a Lionsgate event, it's where the Baron and Baroness get to acknowledge their people with the baronial awards. And when court is already, you've got your court set up a week ahead of time with the scrolls signed in it, you're all ready. And then you have visiting royals and you're told you're only getting 10 minutes. So you have to try and figure out, well, okay.
In our biggest court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it makes it a challenge.
Yeah.
And people get tired of, you know, 3 hours of court because you have kingdom court, then principality court, then you get to baronial court and they're done by then.
Did you guys think like, because I think none of you guys had run a court like as the person in charge before you stepped up. Did you find that odd?
Yeah.
Like, did you find it odd? Like, okay, wow, it's me. I'm the one talking now. Did you find like that adjustment to be challenging? Like, I know Griffin was saying like, you know, like when he first came up, he didn't shut up for the first time he did it. But like, did you find that challenging? Like, was it something that you actively had to think about?
I think because I had been on retinue before and had been a court coordinator, that I was very familiar with how courts happen and the feel of them. So I think that was an advantage to just knowing how I wanted my own courts to run.
Yeah, because
I definitely had an idea of how I wanted my
But
courts
it definitely is different when you're the one that when you call somebody up to give them an award and you're the one, you're holding their hand and they're looking up at you and you could see the expression on their face. It's definitely
it's a magical moment.
Yeah, it's definitely it's different. It makes it vast. You know, it's like you can look at it from a perspective of the audience or from the person receiving the award, but it's a very different experience when you're the one that's giving the award and you're watching how it's affecting the person that you're giving the award to.
Eye contact, that great one-on-one eye contact with somebody getting an award, it's an amazing experience. It's such a shared moment.
So that was a definite, you know, that was something that was really new that you know you don't think about when you're stepping up, but it's like really hits you when it's like you're actually
emotionally connected to that person at that moment.
And it's very special.
I spent so many years reading the Baron's words, it was odd to step out and actually have my own.
Nobody has to talk to you hear them all.
Yeah.
I found it a huge challenge. I don't like public speaking, but I got better at it. I didn't throw up on anyone.
There you go.
A couple times, but
I have a weird like I'm not really comfortable as a public speaker, and it's something I have to work at, but I have been an actor since I was a teenager. So it's kind of a weird dichotomy how I'm a very insular person and I don't talk a lot in my personal life and whatnot. But then, you know, it's like I put myself out into these positions as an actor on stage or as Baron, and I have to step up and play that role. So it's I don't know why I do it, but I do. But and it's a lot of work sometimes, but I try and do the best I can, and hopefully I pull it off. So.
Yeah, I guess I mean I've been a public speaker for ages and ages, so it really wasn't anything different going into the court. I mean, yeah, there as mentioned, it's a magical feeling as you're giving out awards, and you have that connection. That's going to be a little bit different than just say if I'm doing public speaking as part of being a trainer, or you know, in the science fiction community, I would often be hosting panels or be a guest speaker on panels at some science fiction conventions. So it wasn't really an issue to speaking, but it is still a different thing. It is a role that you're sort of doing, and that whole award thing going off is one of the key things. It's one of the key things that the coronets do, and it's very important. And it's like I say, when we give out awards there, I think we all take it very, very seriously, and it's a very important thing. And you do get a little bit emotional on it, and you're trying to be everything on it there.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first time we got, I think it was our award of arms, and we looked at each other and went, I guess we're not flying under the radar anymore.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing is that's what you're doing to somebody else. You're pulling them up and you're saying, you're not flying under the radar. We notice you. We see all the good works. And that's an incredibly powerful message to send someone.
Did you guys ever feel weird about taking your coronets off at events? Like your circlets, or I guess, what is the term for it? The coronet? Did you guys ever feel weird? You see sometimes, like, especially in the olden days, you would talk about prince and princesses, kings and queens that would deliberately take off their regalia at events, like in the evenings and stuff like that. Do you guys ever feel weird about doing that? Like, I know Kenrick and Aindrias.
Nope, do it. There's got to be a time where you're down. Otherwise, people are going to be coming to your campsite in the middle of the night to ask questions.
Right.
We set pretty strict boundaries. Well, I think we set pretty strict boundaries. They mostly worked. Where that was the time when we were down. We're back at our campsite. We need downtime. We need to camp. We need to eat. Probably need to wash our faces, get some water. No, I didn't feel out about it at all.
Good.
Mostly, I think, because I'd seen what it had done to others.
Yeah.
And I know that they need downtime.
Yeah.
So we said firmly that this is our thing.
Also, it's when you're wearing the coronets, that's a very visible symbol to other people you're talking to, that they're talking to the Baron of Lionsgate.
Yep.
If you're not wearing it, like if you're not, if you just want to be, talking to somebody as yourself, then it's probably better not to be wearing the coronet, because once that's on, that's a very visible symbol. The same thing with the crowns and of the principalities and the kingdoms. With that on there, it's a very obvious symbol that now this is your position that you're in, and it affects how you interact with somebody and how people interact with you. I mean, that's another thing that, it's like, you may be like, okay, I'm just talking to you as somebody, but you're wearing the coronet. So how other people are interacting with you and responding to you as, are they responding to you as Griffin, or are they responding to you as Baron of Lionsgate? And when you're wearing the coronet, it's hard for them to respond to you any other way than Baron of Lionsgate. So it's
and maybe because Caitrina and I had both spent a fair bit of time as heralds representing the Baron and Baroness, or the Prince and Princess at various times, that we know if you've got the trumpets on, you're speaking for the king or the prince or the Baron and Baroness. So moving from trumpets to our own coronets, I think it was fairly easy for us to make that.
Yeah.
This is Uilliam talking, not the Baron.
Yeah. We don't have a hard and fast line. I mean, our encampment usually is like the last refuge of people till the end. So there has to be a time that we do take it off. And it's no set time, but there's a time where you need to just be with the barony, with the kingdom, with your friends, and not necessarily have that on your head. And we definitely, there's no definite time, but we do put it away for sure. It's easier for people, for one thing, to sometimes just enjoy themselves with you.
Even Gerhard and Amanda took the coronets off at times. Gerhard at court, if he was doing war tokens or something, would deliberately take it off, put it down, because the Baron would never sell war tokens.
So Gerhard also took it off a lot, and he would, when he sat, he would
put on his shoe,
cross his knee, and he would just hang it on his knee, like
on
this.
his foot.
Or on his foot. And then, so when we started wearing it, then we learned why. Because that thing weighs a ton, and it has a big rivet, that drills right into your forehead.
Yeah.
So they were not comfortable.
Yeah, the newer ones are much more comfortable than the older ones. The older ones
Oh
are
yeah.
not
Way,
comfortable.
way better.
Woo!
He also had to do something.
Oh, we
with
all
the
just saw Sydney in her bathing suit.
He
Oh.
he used to take apart things during council meetings and put them back together.
I guess she's going to the hot tub.
No charge.
Oh, man.
It's a good thing it was a bathing suit.
Yeah.
I just looked up and it's like, it just changed screens and like, whoa, that was a lot of skin just walked by.
All right, I got another one because I just feel like asking questions
why
right now. Do you guys? Okay, so we were talking earlier about, or you guys were talking earlier about how the SCA has become more and more serious. One of the things that I've always often looked at all of you for, weirdly enough, is that like when the king and queen are around, everything's so formal, so pomp, so ceremony, but it's when the baron and baroness are doing the thing, it's more relaxed kind of. Like, okay, it's more like a hangout rather than an official ceremony and official things. Like nobody's going to be made a peer. Nobody's going to like thing when they're doing it. Like there's not that aura. Did you guys ever were you guys ever mindful of that? Like this is more like your role is more like not entertainment, but more of just set that lesser, more relaxed mood.
But I used to look at it as at kingdom events, that was community. Baronial events, that was family. So it was just a closer knit group of people. And I don't know, that's the way it always made me feel.
Yeah, I'd agree.
One of the things when I was looking at stepping up, and I use this quote because I was down at a Crown event across the line there, and going off and having a snack somewhere, and Duke Darius was there, and someone asked him a question, says, well, you've been king before, what is the king? And he said, the king is the show. And with that, I've sort of taken the line from it, and I used this when I sort of stepped up. The king is the show. They're Broadway. And the Prince and Princess of Tirby, they're just off Broadway. But the Barony of Lions Gate is your local community theater.
I love it.
And that's what we are. So that's the way that I put it there. We're our local community theater there. So yeah, we might not have quite the big budget that the kingdom has, but we're still going to try to put on a good show for you.
Very well done.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing. It was because with the kingdom events, it's like every now and again. But baronial events, there are a lot of baronial events, and your people are seeing you all the time. And so you can't be super serious and on the big show all the time. And like like Caitrina said, it's a family thing. So it's like you want to be a little more relaxed, a little more fun.
Approachable.
And
also, you're amongst your close friends. These are your neighbors that you see every event. And then if you just automatically turn and become so high above them, they're going to resent you for that. Or just, it's a turnoff.
Yeah. Once we step down, we're going to be working with these people in various other roles. You just have to have that good communication, and we're all on the same level, really.
And it's more fun for us as well. It's like we can't be super serious all the time. So it's like if we can make it fun for people, it's fun for us.
I don't like too much silly shit though.
No, you don't want to be
I don't
ridiculous or anything, but it's good to
it's also
get comfortable and.
No, the 3-foot hat was awesome. Come on.
3-foot hat was very
I think also for us as Baron and
we have
Baroness,
more decorum than that.
It's a marathon for us. We got 3 years to do this in.
Yeah.
Whereas Prince Princess, King and Queen, they've only got 6 months. The pieces on the other side of it as well, but I think for us, we have to try to take it slow. We can't. I think it would just add to burnout faster if we were totally serious all the time. And because it is that, like Griffin said, is that it's a constant thing. There's so many events and we're doing it for so long that we are who you get. We're not, we can't be that serious all the time. I just think that would, there are words that my brain hasn't replaced yet. So.
I like to have fun.
And other words.
One of the things I found quite interesting when we were talking about wearing the coronets and everything like that, we stepped up at a Baroness's tourney, so you're seeing all these local people and everything like that. And like you say, we have this familiarity with the local people. Then we go off to 12th night, which is our first kingdom event after that. And you're wearing the coronet. And suddenly that's when it really says to you that first 12th night after you stepped up, and now everybody is bowing at you. And now,
yeah.
Oh, you're just like, right, we're wearing coronets.
Yeah.
We're important. And you brought up Savrik. I remember Savrik made a comment to me about when he was king and he went off to Penzik. And he said, like, I went down the Merchant Island there. It was like, it didn't seem that busy or anything like that. Then I went down another day when I wasn't wearing the crown. And that's like, I mean, you could barely move. And he suddenly realized, oh, right, people cleared the path for me because I was wearing the coronet, because I was wearing the crown. And it's the same thing as we found at 12th night, is essentially people you didn't know just looked up at that pointy hat you were wearing and kind of made space, and you're as new Baron, you're do I bow back? I mean, I come from a martial arts background, right? Someone bows at you, you bow it down, you're getting ready to fight, right? No, but you sort of have that thing, like, like what is the right attitude to do and everything like that, and how do I acknowledge them? What's the proper acknowledgement as the Baron? It's not just
That nod.
Yeah, I usually just nod back at them. Yeah.
But don't you find when you go to a 12th night or something that it's far away and there's lots of people who don't know you, that's when you get more bows than when you're at home, because there's so many people that already know you on such a personal level, they just don't bother. They don't bother.
Yeah, most of when we stepped up, the ones that we're doing, we're saying, we got to get you used to this. They didn't even almost say that. I'm bowing to you to get you used to it. But until you hit the 12th night, you don't really get used to it.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think we're having people dropping off here. It's Sunday night, daylight savings time. Some of us actually have to go to work in the morning.
Yeah,
so
work.
Probably start wrapping this up pretty quick. I don't know what the rest of you feel, but
I gotta get up in 7 hours. Yeah.
And he works right here.
I go to work and I'm right there.
Perfect.
Kevin had a little closing spiel.
Actually get up and go to
Ray there. He can.
Kevin had a little closing spiel that he'd like to.
Yeah,
so,
I typed it up, but maybe now that there are so few of us, I can actually say it.
Okay, go for it.
On table again. No. I start talking. It goes unstable connection.
Oh, no.
Like my internet's judging me
Your
for being
bandwidth is
unstable.
low. Yes.
Kevin's unstable.
Kevin's a little unstable. Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can't do it in Kevin's voice, or I'd do this in Kevin's voice, because otherwise it would be perfect.
Yes, we can hear you.
2 sentences. I'd love to be able to do it.
Go for it.
Thank each and every one of you for coming and talking. Thank you, everyone who stayed around and was in the audience. I did a little bit of digging around, and this is the first time that we've had 4 baronial couples.
And now you're frozen.
Oh, here again.
But he had 4 baronial couples on here.
Worth it. Well worth.
First time the 4 baronial couples all together in one place. I believe is what he was trying to say.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Jerry, and thank you, Kiva, for doing all this hard work.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
It's been fantastic, and thank you all for speaking, and it's been amazing. And yeah, this one's definitely going up online, and I don't have to. Well, you know what? I am going to do a bit of editing because I'm actually going to put that beautiful video with the music is going to get clipped in at the beginning. It's already up on YouTube because I took the opportunity of doing that. The music was amazing, and it made it. I was leaking, and it was beautiful, and then I couldn't get it to work live. So anyway, onwards, upwards.
And thank you everybody for coming to this. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And as Kevin says, come to council on Wednesday. And hopefully his connection is working on Wednesday.
Okay, good
Oh, yeah, we're
night.
gonna take it down.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Good seeing
Thank
you
you,
guys.
everyone.
I've missed you all.
You.
Meeting okay? Or no, I don't have to. You can. There we go.
I'll close it when everybody logs off. Get out of here. Go on.
Good night.
Cat.
Good night. It's
Good
so hard to
night.
log off and say goodbye to everyone.
I know, isn't it? All those, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a fantastic night.
Thank you. You
And we'll
too.
see you next week for next edition of Lion's Den. When will we be talking about the first people talk in the SCA, which is the big one. So you might have to watch that in live stream instead of Zoom, simply because it's so many people want to attend it. So
yeah,
do that one next week. Have a good night.
See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.